75thefanatic.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Middays. I'm Bill Colarulo, along with Ray Dunn today. And if you missed the big announcement this morning, Mikey Miss is back. We'll be taking over Middays starting August 12th. I'll be joining. Ray Dunn will be producing. We cannot wait. August 12th. So put it on your calendar. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a great show. Right in time for our Philadelphia Eagles. And that's how we're going to start the show today, with our Philadelphia Eagles, because last night down at Lincoln Financial Field, I got to give our Eagles fans credit. I've been upset with Philly fans, talking about Philly, not the Phillies, Philly fans in general, with the Yankees taking over Citizens Bank Park, with the Knicks taking over the Wells Fargo Center during the playoffs. But last night was a reminder why Philadelphia fans are the best fans in the country, and it's not even close. 50,000 Eagles fans poured into a practice. Talking about practice. 50,000 of them last night in 95-degree weather at Lincoln Financial Field to get their first look at the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles. And it's so nice because we haven't seen them play yet. They haven't been on the field against an opponent yet. So really all you have right now is positivity. And certainly there are things to be concerned about, and we're going to get into that in a little bit because there are still concerns I have with this team. But I want to start the show being excited because we got the exciting news this morning about Mike Missanelli. Let me say what's up to Ray Dunn, because Ray Dunn's going to be a part of it. I'm excited to get to work with Ray a lot more, Raymond. It's going to be a fun football season, man.
It's going to be a fun football season. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited to to work with the legend, work with yourself. It's going to be a fun football season. So a lot to look forward to, and it's coming quickly. We got just a week and a half.
Isn't that crazy? There's a preseason game next week already. And there was a preseason game last night. I don't know if a lot of people tuned in for the Hall of Fame game. I did, just because I wanted to see the new kickoff, which I want to talk about because that new kickoff looks funky, but I think I'm going to like it. But I want to start with that offense, Ray, because we're going to be positive to start the show. I do want to get into some concerns I still have with the Eagles, especially the offense and even that defense. But let's start with the positive stuff. Because Jalen Hurts last night, from all accounts, I only got to see highlights. I wasn't down there. Andrew DeCecco was. He's going to call in at 12 o'clock to give us his full breakdown on everything he saw. But Jalen Hurts looked really good last night. You saw some big plays. You saw a nice long pass to A.J. Brown where A.J. is going up the sidelines, and Jalen Hurts, under pressure, steps up in the pocket, makes time, and boom, hits him on a long pass. How many times do we see it last year where Jalen struggled under pressure? That the moment pressure's coming after him, he's going to leave the pocket. So really like to see that. But the one thing that I'm most excited about, and Ray, I want to get what you're most excited about coming up. But what has me most excited about this offense in 2024, it's not A.J. Brown. It's not Devontae Smith. It's not the addition of Saquon Barkley. It's that Kellen Moore is going to let Jalen Hurts run. Kellen Moore is not going to take away what Jalen Hurts does well, which is run the football. And that was my main concern when Kellen Moore came in here, because you've never seen Kellen Moore have a quarterback like Jalen. He had Dak Prescott, who's mobile, but he's not a runner. He had Justin Herbert, who for his size is pretty athletic, but clearly not a runner. So what was he going to do here in Philadelphia? Was he going to tell Jalen Hurts, you're going to be a pocket passer? You're not going to run as much. Well, it doesn't sound like that's the way Kellen Moore's going, because when Kellen spoke to us on Saturday, this is what Kellen Moore had to say about Jalen running the football. Listen to this.
It's been an excellent factor that Jalen's been able to utilize, just being an extra guy in the run game. Certainly something we want to continue to build off of. You know, I think there's an element of just, finding the games, finding the situations that are right to best suit when we utilize that. But it's a great strength of Jalen. He does an excellent job, and I think he's a really smart runner. I think that's a critical factor to that he's smart with the ball, he's smart with when to make those decisions, and I think he protects himself pretty well.
Love that answer from Kellen Moore. Now, I know there are fans out there that have their concerns. You can't have Jalen run the football. Jalen can't run the football because he's going to get injured. He's going to get hurt. This team wins games when Jalen runs. This team is able to take advantage of defenses when you add that +1 into your offense, where now teams have to account for Jalen Hurts. And to hear Kellen Moore say they're going to utilize that this season, it should open things up for all those weapons I mentioned, for AJ and Devontae and Saquon and Dallas, that defenses will still have to honor the Jalen Hurts run. Ray, where do you stand on that? Because there are fans who say, no, don't let him run. We don't want to see him get hurt. I don't care about that. I want to win football games.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing that way, you're playing scared, quite frankly. It's part of what makes this offense so electric when he's going at his best. If you have to account for the fact that he could throw it over your heads or run right by you, I'm going to be in the camp of making sure that guy gets the chance to run the football, and Kellen Moore should give him every opportunity to use his legs and make this offense as dynamic as possible. It's not at all a question to me of, ooh, how do we protect him? I've seen quarterbacks that just work out of the pocket, end up getting injured because, hey, they don't have the mobility to get around a guy. The pocket collapses on them and something goes wrong. There's always a chance of getting hurt. It's football. I want to see this offense be as good as it possibly could be, and that includes Jalen using his legs.
And you look at last season, and this wasn't the sole reason for the collapse, but 10-1 start. Jalen averaged 10 carries a game. 1-6 finish. Jalen averaged 6 carries a game. Not the only reason they lost, but it just goes to show that when they get away from it, when Jalen's not running the ball as effectively, the team's not as good. And one of the problems you saw last season, it wasn't that they weren't calling the runs necessarily. It wasn't that they weren't calling the RPOs. They just weren't as successful. Teams figured out how to adjust to Jalen Hurts, that RPO game, and to take away what Jalen does well with his legs, and the team couldn't adjust. They had no answer. Nick Sirianni said in his own words at the end of the season, it was stale. They needed fresh ideas. Well, Sirianni just spoke, I think it was on Tuesday. We've heard from him a couple times now. I think it may have been Tuesday. No, it was Friday last week. And he talked about what they're going to do to take advantage of Jalen Hurts' legs. Listen to this. Listen to what he talks about with the wrinkles in the running game.
The things that we're doing in the quarterback run game, there is a lot of similarities of the things that we're doing from last year, and then there's also some new wrinkles that we're able to have. And so I wouldn't say it's been a huge change as far as the quarterback run game goes, but there are definitely new wrinkles and new ways to get to things and new ways to hide things and new ways to disguise things. And when you hide things and disguise things, kind of like what we're doing right now, the points change sometimes. The way the math plays out changes sometimes because the defense has to react to the motion or to the shift or to the different formation or different personnel group that we're in.
Ray, how awesome is that? Talking about adding wrinkles, talking about disguising things. Because we heard it. A lot of you probably saw it last year. Christian McCaffrey goes on a podcast last season, and he's calling out, I think it may have been the Manning cast, for a Monday night game when the Eagles were on. And he's calling out the play before the Eagles ran the play. So now you're going to take something that this team has done very well in 3 seasons, Jalen Hurts run the football, something that has proven to be effective. You look at Jalen Hurts' record when he runs the ball. And again, I'm not suggesting he should run the ball this much, but when Jalen has more than 10 carries a game, this team's 16-4. When he has 14 or more carries, they're undefeated, right? They're 10-0. I don't want him running the ball 14 times, so I don't want fans coming at me for that. But it just goes to show you that when he runs, this team wins. He's only had 20 losses in his career. 16 of those 20 losses came when Jalen Hurts had less than 10 carries. So to hear them now add wrinkles to be able to disguise certain things that Jalen's going to do in the running game, that's music to my ears, man.
Yeah, it's nice to think that this offense is going to have a little bit more to it than what you had last season. I think this is ultimately what's going to come down to, though, for him running the football. It's one, I think you're going to have just a better schematic approach on the offensive side of the ball. and you're also going to have that knee healthy. Both of those things, I think, hampered him and hampered this offense more than we would care to admit, even though we've spent an entire offseason talking about all of those things happening, even though they finished 7th in the league last year. When you talk about total offense, we all saw it. We all saw what the potential of this team could be with the talent. And between his knee and between the way that it was all designed, there was just not a way for him to succeed the way you've seen before, especially in the running game.
It should be fun. It certainly should be fun. And look, I know there are fans out there, and we want to hear from you if you have opinions on Jalen Hurts running the football. But I know there are fans that worry about the injuries. We've seen quarterbacks in this league get injured in the pocket. Sirianni talks about that a lot. So as long as Jalen is a smart runner, and they've talked about this, being a smart runner, don't take the unnecessary hits, right? Don't take on a linebacker to get an extra yard. Get down. Get out of bounds. Do what you have to do to protect yourself physically, but I don't want to see them just take away that part of his game. And it sounds like Kellen Moore is smart enough, and Sirianni as well, that it doesn't make sense. It is a weapon that other teams just don't have. Like, you don't see them telling Lamar Jackson not to run the ball. And he wins the MVP last season. So don't take that element away from his game. But that's not the only thing that there is to be excited about with this offense. And that's what we want to open up the phone lines and the text lines today. Yes, granted, we've only seen him in training camp. Fans got their first look last night. 50,000 fans, Ray. You were in there talking to Vito, I believe, when I was talking about that. How about 50,000 fans showing up to Lincoln Financial Field in 95-degree weather last night to watch a damn practice, Ray?
Talk about practice. They love it here. It's amazing. It's amazing to see the number of people that show out there. It's only unfortunate that it's the one chance you get to see this team. You would love for the fan base to get a couple more looks at them in practice than they do. You know, give me the Lehigh, the Westchester. I mean, Lehigh's more my time of being a
Same,
kid.
man. I used to go to Lehigh, too.
Yeah, give us the Lehigh days back on that one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and we talked a little bit about that yesterday. As much as the Eagles organization does a lot of things well for this city, do a lot of charity. Last night, I think they raised $500,000 for autism. So, I mean, they do a lot of great things. But they're wrong on this. They're 100% wrong not to have more practices. Now, you could make the argument, well, maybe 50,000 fans wouldn't show up if there were more open practices. I think they would. I think if they had 5 of those, they'd have 50,000 all 5 nights. I think people would still show up because look at Lehigh. They had the day T.O. showed up at Lehigh. I think there were 30,000 fans for a practice for Terrell Owens' first day in practice. People would show up. These fans are crazy in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, I do think you probably get the 50,000 number because it's once, but do you think they could have multiple nights of 30, 40,000? Yeah. I'd absolutely think that you could pull that. And that's still incredible to think about the number of people to watch. Yeah, it's a glorified practice.
Well, what bothers me about not having more practices is, look, if you've been down to Lincoln Financial for a regular season game,
yeah,
it's not cheap, Ray.
No.
It is not cheap. And you look at it with families who, one, they may not be able to afford the tickets for themselves, but you have kids and you want to bring your kids to a game. You're not bringing your kids to a regular season game at Lincoln Financial Field with the amount of money it's going to cost you, and the environment's a little bit different. Sometimes it can get a little bit rough, although it's not the Veteran Stadium days. But training camp was a perfect opportunity to get your kids in front of their heroes so that they could watch practice, they could see their guys up close. It's just a shame that they can't figure out a way. Look, you got the NovaCare complex. They could figure out a way. I know they bring in a few kids here and there. I've seen it. We heard them at all the press conferences screaming in the background. But they should have done more. They 100% should do more. But whatever. We're going to try to be positive to start the damn show with the offense looking pretty good last night. And that's what I want to throw out to everybody today. What are you most excited to see with this Eagles offense in 2024? Send us a text. You can get in on the phone lines, 610-632-0975. For me, it's Jalen Hurts running the football. And if you want to disagree with me on that, I want to hear from you as well, 610-632-0975, on why you wouldn't want Jalen Hurts to run the ball, why you wouldn't want the Eagles to take advantage of a major skill that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. It's something that separates Jalen Hurts from other quarterbacks in the league. It's the reason why he was probably 13th or 15th. Where did he come in on the top 100, Ray? 15th. 15th out of all NFL players on the top 100. Jalen Hurts is still sitting at 15, even after what everyone assumed was a down year for Jalen last year. But, Ray, I want to throw that question to you. You're with me. You're okay with Jalen Hurts running the football. But if you had to look at this offense and pick one thing that has you most excited after what we've seen to start training camp, what is it?
I gave him his props yesterday when we were talking about this specific player, but I remember back in February, March, we were talking about, should you go after a running back? Would you pay Saquon Barkley? And I'm sitting there like, paying a running back, it's the year 2024. Maybe we need to grow up here in the NFL and get with the times. Let's not pay the running back position. Then they get Saquon, and I'm like, all right, I can't ignore the fact that I like it a lot, and it's even sweeter for me with the New York side of the family that I get to rub it into them just a little bit, that we've got the only thing that made them relevant. And now that we're getting close to the season, Andrew was right. There was no way I wasn't going to get excited about Saquon Barkley being on this offense. And when it opens up, because when you talk about Jalen running the football, now you have to respect Saquon Barkley's in that backfield with him. You're not just going to put all of your attention on Jalen Hurts. When you talk about coming out of the backfield, catching passes, obviously I want the passing game to go through the two dynamic receivers and the big tight end that you've got. But I'm sorry, the idea of Saquon Barkley being able to slip out of there, catch a pass, and make somebody miss and pick up a big play, that also has me just really excited. And then what we've had in this offensive line, and sure, you have the question mark of what's going to be at right guard and what Cam Jurgens will be at center, but with the offensive line that you have and one of the best running backs in football, yeah, I'll be pretty excited to see the way Saquon Barkley, and he just seems so excited. He also seems so excited to be here and be a part of this.
He got the biggest ovation last night when they came out for practice because fans just couldn't wait to see him in an Eagles jersey. But you talk about him slipping out of the backfield, and that's a good one too, because for me, I said, hey, the happiest for me is that they're going to run Jalen. But close second, Ray, I'm with you. Saquon Barkley out of the backfield, because it's not something that this team has done. With Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's Jalen that doesn't like to throw the ball to the running backs. I don't know if it was Sirianni's offense that just doesn't like to throw to the running backs. But they just haven't done a lot of it in the last 3 seasons. And last year when DeAndre Swift came in, that's exactly what we thought they were going to do. DeAndre Swift, what he was great at when he was in Detroit was he was a better receiver out of the backfield than he even was a runner. And he did have 39 catches out of the backfield last season, but that was the lowest of his career. You look at the prior 2 seasons, Kenny Gainwell led you out of the backfield both seasons. I think 33 catches, 23 catches. I have those numbers somewhere. If you start to listen to me more, I got tons of notes, Ray. Yeah, 23, 33. How about that memory right there?
Listen to you. I see you come in every day.
Look at that.
I can see the legal notepad.
Yeah, I got all my legal pads. That's the one thing of being a lawyer I wasn't able to kick is my yellow legal pads. So I always got them on me. Very organized. YouTube can take a look at see all the little tabs, color coordinated. It's all about the prep, Ray. It's all about the prep. But you talk about the running back receptions, and that was other news coming from Kellen Moore that I was happy to hear, because not only did he talk about, hey, we're going to take advantage of what Jalen does well in running the football, he talked about exactly what you just mentioned, the receiver out of the backfield. Listen to this.
It does have to be an outlet at times for the quarterback, but I think it's critical that we utilize those guys in the pass game to create horizontal space, and then every once in a while get them vertical. And so, we've been fortunate to be around some really good ones in the past. Saquon's going to be phenomenal. Kenny's done it here before. Will's obviously shown tons of evidence to support that he's going to be able to utilize that skill. And so we have 3 backs who can play a lot of different places on the field, and that'll be a huge advantage for us.
Love it, Ray. I know this is just words, but that's pretty much all you get. When you're in training camp, you get words from the coaches, you get highlight videos from the people who were down there. We're going to get some more deep insight from Andrew DeCecco coming up at noon, because he's been at all the training camp practices. He was down there again last night. And if you've listened to Andrew, he really knows his Eagles. But what Kellen Moore is saying right there, I love. And you're talking about Saquon Barkley getting receptions out of the backfield. It does sound like they still really like Kenny Gainwell. And we joked yesterday about Rashad Penny retiring and how fans were all last season, why is Gainwell in there and not Rashad Penny? Well, Rashad Penny had nothing left. That was obvious. But I know fans may get upset this year. I don't think you're going to see Saquon Barkley every single down. Kenny Gainwell is going to get playing time, and everything that's being reported out of training camp is that Kenny G looks pretty good, and this is a contract year for him. I believe he's entering year 4 of his rookie deal, so this is probably his last contract. Let me check that, but Ray, you going to be upset if Kenny Gainwell's getting receptions out of the backfield?
He's a practice warrior, man. He's been looking good the last couple camps. You got to love what they've got in this running back room. I will understand it because the long game here with Saquon Barkley is to make sure that he is a part of your offense for 17 games. Will I love it? Probably not.
It's going to happen.
As someone that was a Kenny Gainwell supporter for quite a while, I think I've seen enough to make my verdict on this one. I'm cool without all the Kenny Gainwell involvement. Nick Sirianni the other day in the Kenneth Gainwell football shirt was enough for me to say, yeah, he's going to get more playing time than we would like to see.
But Ray, come on. Like, Sirianni panders, people are angry about it. Bryce Harper panders, we're losing our minds. We're so excited. Oh, how great is Bryce with the Wawa cleats? Nick Sirianni wears a Kenny G shirt, and people are going to be upset.
I'm not upset. I'm just saying, I see what you're doing here. You're already priming me to see way too many snaps from him. I got you, Nick Sirianni. Also, come on. Let's not go the Bryce Harper and his job
comparison.
versus Nick Sirianni
not
and
a fair
his job.
comparison. Yeah, I've defended Sirianni and coming back, but I'm going to be with you on this one. You can't really compare Sirianni and Harper. But coming up, I do want to talk more about the dual running backs because if you look at Kellen Moore's history, time in Dallas with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, he likes to use both backs. So I want to prepare you for that. We'll continue to talk about what has us most excited about this Eagles offense. But there's also some concerns. It's not all peaches and cream. So there are things that we have to be worried about. But we're going to get into all of that coming up. This is Middays. I'm Bill Colarulo. We'll be right back.
Fanatic.
Welcome back into Middays. Bill Colarulo, along with Ray Dunn. This 10 o'clock hour is brought to you by Window Nation. Take advantage of Window Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows. Plus, make no down payment with no payments and no interest for 12 months. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. And if you're just tuning in and you missed the big news announced this morning on Kincade and Salciunas, Mikey Miss coming back to the Fanatic, a Philly sports legend. Me and Ray are excited to work with him. That'll be kicking off August 12th, every weekday from 10 to 2. Should be a lot of fun. And what else should be a lot of fun is this Eagles offense this year. And if it's not, then there's a serious problem with this Eagles team and the coaches and Jalen Hurts, because they have all of the weapons that you would expect for them to be a very good offense. When you figure last season, top 7 offense, and they never looked right for 17 games. They really never looked like anything clicked, and they're top 7. And now you add Saquon and you add Kellen Moore. So we got our first look at the offense last night as far as fans go. 50,000 fans poured into Lincoln Financial Field to watch this offense. And me and Ray are going back and forth on what we're most excited about. We're going to get into some of the concerns coming up, but we're trying to start the show with some positivity. What we're most excited about. For me, it's the fact that Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni both acknowledged that they're going to continue to let Jalen Hurts run the ball. They understand that's a weapon. Jalen Hurts' legs are a weapon, and they're going to utilize it. And Sirianni even talked about them adding some wrinkles and disguises, because you looked at last season, it wasn't that they were calling the run less for Jalen. It wasn't that they were calling the RPO less. They just weren't as effective. Teams adjusted, and the Eagles couldn't adjust back. They had no counterpunch. Well, now they're going to have that counterpunch, hopefully, with Kellen Moore calling the shots. That's what I'm most excited about. Ray, most excited about Saquon Barkley. Hard to argue. And he went a step further and said he's really excited about Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. But then we got talking about Kenny G. Talking about Kenny Gainwell, not the saxophone artist. You don't know who that is, I heard you say before.
Yeah.
I think he could hold I think he holds like the longest note or something like that. Saxophone. Anyway. And I was telling Ray not to get upset, as excited as we all are about Saquon Barkley. I'm right there with you. Everything we're hearing out of training camp, and I want to talk to Andrew DeCecco about this because he's talked about how good Kenny Gainwell's looked, that Kenny Gainwell looks good. Nick Sirianni wearing a Kenny Gainwell T-shirt the other day. I do expect Kenny Gainwell to still be a big part of this offense, and I know you're thinking to yourself, well, why pay Saquon all of that money if you're not going to have him on the field all the time? You look at Kellen Moore's history, though. He likes to use 2 running backs. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. You go back to the 2021 season when they had the number 1 offense in the entire National Football League. Talk about catching the ball out of the backfield, something we're excited about. Zeke had 47 catches. Tony Pollard had 39. That's almost 50-50 split between the both of them. Now, the combination of 86 catches, that would be pretty fun to watch. To see them use the running backs that much out of the backfield. Now, I don't expect a 50-50 split between Saquon and Kenny, but you're certainly going to see Kenny G involved. And then you look at the running game. Zeke had 237 carries that year. Tony Pollard, 130. So he loves to utilize that 2-back system. Now, I will say, Saquon is probably better than Zeke was that year. And Pollard is definitely better than Kenny Gainwell is. So I don't expect it to be as much of a split like you saw in Dallas in 2021, but I certainly do expect to see Kenny G a lot this season. But we want to hear from you today on what you're most excited about. We'll get to our concerns a little bit later on in the show, but as we look at that offense, what are you most excited about? Because there is a lot to be excited about as we get ready for this 2024 season. And Ray mentioned Saquon Barkley. Do we have the Twitter poll up, Ray?
Yeah, we do.
What do we got on the Twitter poll today?
All right, today's Twitter poll. The fans got their first look at the 2024 Eagles offense last night. The link, who in the offense will have the best season? Your options, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, and Dallas Goedert. Right now, the early returns, 7% of the people saying Dallas Goedert, 17% saying Devontae Smith, 32% saying Saquon Barkley, and 44% of the vote going to A.J. Brown.
Interesting. So Devontae getting 17%. We're going to have to talk about that because I think we're underestimating how good he's going to be this year. I think we are underestimating how good Devontae Smith is going to be. I want to get to that coming up, but we talked earlier in the show about Jalen Hurts running the football and how much I'm excited about it. I want to go to the phones because Mitch from Phoenix doesn't want Jalen running the ball. I got to hear this. What's up, Mitch? You're on the Fanatic.
No, I didn't say I don't want him to run the ball. I just think when you have a running back like Saquon, the caliber of a running back that he is, I remember watching him at Penn State. I couldn't wait till he came out into the NFL. That's the guy who's going to run the ball, and Kenny Gainwell will run the ball as well.
But I agree with you, Mitch, that I don't want Jalen running the ball as much because you're right. You got Saquon. Hopefully Kenny Gainwell grows in year 4. He can carry the football. I just don't want to see them completely eliminate that from their offense because when teams have to worry about Jalen Hurts pulling that ball on that read option or a design run around the outside, it forces them now to have to honor that +1. If they know he's not a threat to run, it's a little bit easier to defend Saquon and Kenny Gainwell out of the backfield, isn't it?
Yeah, and you'll see him run. But I'll repeat myself. That's why they got Saquon Barkley, gave him a lot of money, and they expect a lot from him.
Appreciate the call, Mitch. Yeah, I don't disagree with Mitch. It sounds like we're on the same page. I don't need Jalen running the ball as much as we've seen in previous seasons because he has run the ball a lot. And last year, banged up that knee, didn't look healthy at times, was wearing that knee brace. I just don't want to see them completely change their offense. Because when you go back to 2022, what made that offense so damn good? Why was Jalen Hurts an MVP caliber quarterback the entire 2022 season? Run pass option. They couldn't stop it. You look at the last season. They called the RPO just as much. They just weren't averaging the same amount of yards per play. I've gone over these stats with you before. In 2022, when Jalen Hurts is playing at an MVP level, RPO generated 7.8 yards every time they called it on average. Last year, that number drops by 3 yards per RPO play, all the way down to 4.8 because they couldn't figure out that counterpunch. Once teams figured out how to adjust to the RPO, the Eagles couldn't counterpunch it. They had no answer. I want to see them get back to that because to Mitch's point about Saquon, how good is it going to look when Jalen Hurts puts the ball in the belly of Saquon and he's reading that defensive end, and now a defense has to figure out, are they going to crash down to stop Saquon Barkley? And if they do, now Jalen can pull that ball, take it around the outside, and still have the pass option to go to A.J. or Devontae or even Dallas Goedert. It's going to be extremely, extremely difficult for defenses to stop it. I just don't want to see them turn Jalen into a pocket passer. So I think Mitch and I are on the same page, but I just don't want to see them eliminate that. Right? You're with me on that.
Yeah, I don't want to see him eliminate that. I mean, I think there's a lot from the offense last year that you're going to take and make a lot of adjustments to because of the way it looked and because of the way things went. But if you want to get back to what truly worked for them 2 seasons ago, I think you have to just, again, kind of acknowledge the fact that the zone read was such a big part of everything they did and such a big part of what made him successful. Go back to the drawing board of everything that worked under Steichen. And I think Kellen Moore, it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to having a quarterback with the skill set of Jalen Hurts because it's unique to what he's had before.
Yeah, he's never had it. I do think he's a smart enough offensive mind, though. And look, we've debated on the station a lot. What happened last year with the offense? Was it Sirianni? Was it Brian Johnson? Probably both need to share responsibility. I don't think Brian Johnson was ready to call plays in the NFL. And then once it was reported that he was calling plays for Sirianni's offense, I'm sure that made it even more difficult. But you've replaced him now with a guy who's done it. A guy who's not only called plays, but did it for the number 1 offense in the NFL. You kind of have to know what you're doing to have a number 1 offense. I don't care how many weapons you have. Eagles are a prime example last season. All the weapons they had, they do finish top 7, but things didn't look right. That offense back in 2022, when they're finishing with the number 1 offense in Dallas, Kellen knew what he was doing. Actually, he had a top 10 offense in 22, number 1 in 2021. So this is a guy who's called plays for 2 top 10 offenses in his career already. So I will take that. Take that every day from Kellen Moore. But I want to hear from everybody today, trying to keep it positive to start the show. Send us a text. What has you most excited about this Eagles offense as we get ready for 2024? Want to hear from the YouTube chat as well. I see you. I understand the YouTube chat. Some people aren't happy about what's unfolded this week. We get it. We understand. But we do want to hear from you about the Eagles. What are you excited about in 2024? What on this offense has you most excited? It could be a player. It could be a scheme. For me, it's more scheme related, that it sounds like they're going to continue to let Jalen Hurts run. For Ray, it's Saquon Barkley, especially in the passing game out of the backfield. But we do want to hear from everybody. Get in 610-632-0975. But we put up that Twitter poll, Ray. And Devontae Smith comes in at 17%. And what I want to get into coming up is I think we may be underestimating how good Devontae Smith is going to be this season. Because, look, he's been good in his first couple seasons in the NFL. I mean, he set the rookie record for the Philadelphia Eagles in franchise history. Last year, he goes over 1,000 yards. The year before, he goes over 1,000 yards. So you look at his 3 seasons in the NFL. 916 yards as a rookie, franchise record for rookies in Eagles history. Close to 1,200 yards in 2022. And he gets close to 1,100 yards in 2023. But I still think we have not seen how good Devontae Smith can be. So coming up, I want to get into that because we've heard now from a lot of people, a lot of players on that team, Jalen Hurts being one of them, A.J. Brown being another one of them, about how good Devontae Smith has looked in training camp. And I want to talk to you about, are we underestimating how good Devontae can be in 2024? All that coming up right after this.
Now, a Birds Insider update on 90.
Welcome back into Middays. Bill Colarulo, along with Ray Dunn. Talking a lot about the Eagles offense to start the show because they put on a show last night at the Link in front of 50,000 fans. Talking about what has us most excited. Want to hear from you? Send us a text, 610-632-0975. What are you most excited about with this offense? And I want to talk about Devontae Smith. Because although this team has A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley, and they get a lot of the hype, as they should. A.J. Brown, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Saquon Barkley finally now will have weapons to play with behind an offensive line and a solid quarterback. The last time that happened was his rookie season, and Saquon Barkley went off when he had Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr. You know that was the only time he played with a 1,000-yard receiver, Ray? His rookie season, OBJ had 1,000 yards. He's never played with a 1,000-yard receiver since.
And that feels like a million years ago to me.
I think it was 2018, right? Wait, when did Saquon come into the league? I think it was 2018. So the 1 year he had a 1,000-yard receiver on his team, Saquon goes off 1,300 yards rushing, 721 yards receiving, and 91 catches. So now you've added Saquon to a team that not only has a 1,000-yard receiver in A.J. Brown, they have a 1,000-yard receiver in Devontae Smith. So he goes from not having a single one to having two. And I do think we may be underestimating how good Devontae can be this year. We know how good he is. But everything we're hearing is that this guy can't even be covered in training camp. And that's a good thing because we've heard about how good Quinyon looks, how good Isaiah Rodgers looks, how good Keely Ringo looks. You know Darius Slay still playing at a high level. Well, A.J. Brown said nobody can cover Devontae. Listen to A.J. Brown.
Nobody has been able to cover Devontae all camp. He's been having an amazing camp. I think the offense is doing a really good job. Just trying to execute. They take all players. Jay's been doing a great job as well. You know, I'm expecting Smitty to take another jump. You know, because he definitely has all the tools. And for me, sitting on the side watching him, I know how hard he works. So it just makes everybody around him better.
Yo, nobody can guard him in training camp. I can't wait to talk to Andrew DeCecco about this because he's watched a lot of those one-on-ones. Ray, how good can Devontae be this season? Because you look at his stats, I think the most yards he's ever had in a season was 2022. He had 1196. Yeah, 2022, 95 catches, 1196. There's only one football to go around. So I don't know, does he surpass those numbers when you've added Saquon to the passing game? We're all expecting Dallas Goedert to take a leap forward. But how good can this guy be if he's gotten better as a player, and now you got an offensive play caller and play designer, more importantly, in Kellen Moore, that designs plays to get the ball to his playmakers in space? What are you expecting from Devontae this year?
Devontae Smith is a gift from the football gods. A miracle, some might say. The fact that he was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles and is this good as a wide receiver is something that I try to compute daily because I feel like I've been programmed my entire life to see a wide receiver drafted by the Eagles and think to myself, oh, man, how's this guy going to disappoint me? Just from the long list of ones that I've had to endure.
Why, have we had some bad receivers in this town?
Just a little bit. So the fact that he's a bird is always to me just a wonderful thing to celebrate. But what he is, and especially with A.J. Brown on the other side of the field, you can't really give him the coverage or the attention that he definitely deserves. And that is one of his great assets. He's could be a number one on another team. The fact that he is, your 1A here with A.J. Brown gives him an ability, again, to be the super freak athlete that he is. Like some of the catches he comes down with, some of the plays he's able to make, whether it be along the sideline, going over the top and being, I think there's at least 2 or 3 catches a year where he's up in the air, somehow gets knocked up in the air, lands awkwardly, and somehow comes down with the football. He just has a knack of getting to the football, finding a way to make the grab, and his, I guess, demeanor, I don't know, what he gives to this offense and the way he kind of buys into the role of, hey, there's A.J. Brown on the other side, and I'm just going to go do my thing. can't be understated. I think we definitely take a little bit for granted what we've got Devontae Smith, just because they make the trade for A.J. Brown. It's like, wow, look at who they're brought in here, and Brown and Hurts and the relationship the two of them have. Everyone kind of knows the two of them were tight and still continue to be tight here in Philadelphia. I think we kind of let Devontae Smith be Devontae Smith without really throwing all the flowers at his feet he probably deserves.
Yeah, and this is another great contract by Howie Roseman. Because by getting Devontae Smith done when they got him done, first of all, they didn't have to. You look at what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. He doesn't want to play under his fifth-year option in San Francisco. I don't blame him. You look at what's happening with C.D. Lamb. Both these guys need new deals. As much as Devontae wanted a new deal, they didn't have to give him a contract. He still was in his final year of his 4-year rookie deal. They still had his fifth-year option. But what did Howie Roseman do? Take care of him now. Get that deal done before the wide receiver market explodes. Devontae's averaging $25 million a year, Ray. Yeah, I mean, I could take $25 million. I know you could take $25 million. But for a wide receiver position, Justin Jefferson's making $35 million a year. Amon-Ra St. Brown got over $30 million a year. It's only a matter of time before Tyreek Hill gets an adjustment to his contract. He's making $30 million. Jalen Waddle, $28.2. So the fact that they got that deal done, because I am expecting Devontae Smith to explode this year, and now you got him locked up for only $25 million a year, and you look around at your NFC rivals, and the Cowboys and the Niners are a mess right now with that wide receiver position.
Yeah, and they've got a lot to figure out, whether it be how they will replace production of guys who might not be there because of frustration with the contract, or just guys who are, I don't want to say making business decisions, but I would imagine there are going to be a couple business decisions made this season. Do you want to go over the middle when you know you got that contract that's out there? Do you want to take that big hit if you know you still haven't gotten that money, still haven't gotten paid? I think that you're in a great spot because of what you were able to do to lock up both of your receivers and two of the top, one of the best duos you have in the entire National Football League.
And for a few more years because of the fact that they locked him up. And what I like, too, is we were talking earlier about, well, how good can Devontae Smith be? And I said, well, there's still only one football to go around, right? They got to get Saquon involved and Dallas involved. You're not going to have anybody angry when they don't get the football because they already got their contract. Now they can focus on, hey, we just want to win football games. Because, look, I don't blame players. We talked about this yesterday. Rashad Penny having to retire already. Tariq Cohen having to retire already. NFL, not for long. You've heard that. Careers are short. So guys want to get that next contract, and how do you earn the next contract? By producing on the field. You don't have to worry about that with this Eagles team because A.J. got paid. Devontae got paid. Saquon obviously got paid. Jalen already was paid. So you don't have to worry about them being unhappy that they're not getting the football. So that's not one of the concerns. But I do have a concern, Ray, with this offense. It's just not all peaches and cream. It's not all positivity. There are things that we have to see unfold on the field. And I do have a concern with this offense that I want to get into coming up. And we also got to talk about that new kickoff that we saw for the first time last night. So all that coming up. This is Middays. I'm Bill Colarulo. too many Yankees fans there. I'm getting texts from my New York buddies saying we're a better fan base. I hate that. Same thing happened with the Knicks. Their fans, way too many of them at that Sixers playoff series, way too many. So it was good to see our fans turn out last night.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I'm starting to think it just kind of comes down to dollars and cents. You know, they got a corporate box that they play baseball in up there. We have a ballpark. So I can understand why fans would come down here to come to see a real ballpark, a place that baseball is actually played that doesn't charge you through the nose to be there. The basketball one was obviously difficult, but, you know, the Knicks trying to be relevant again. So I could see why they were more excited for a first-round playoff series than this fan base might have been.
I just pray that when it's Phillies, Yankees potentially in the World Series, that the Yankees fans don't take over Citizens Bank Park, because we have a reputation to uphold as Red October, man. And I don't think they will. I think our Phillies fans will be there for the playoffs. They've shown out every single game. But to your point, World Series tickets at Yankee Stadium are a hell of a lot more expensive probably than what they are here. And they're expensive here. It's just New York's on a whole different level when it comes to pricing.
Yeah, well, Yanks got to get there first. So
yeah, so do the Phillies, I guess. But we'll talk a little bit of Phillies because they have a big road trip coming up. But we started the show talking some Eagles because we got our first look last night. Fans did. You know, our own Andrew DeCecco's been down there every day. He'll be joining us at 12 o'clock to get the insight he's seen every day of training camp and last night at the open practice. But fans got their first look. So we're throwing out the question, what are you most excited about with this Eagles offense? Because I think the fact they're going to let Jalen Hurts run the football is a huge, huge upside and a huge positive for this team in 2024. Don't take away what the guy does well. Don't take away an advantage you have that other teams don't. Ray, great answer. He's excited about Saquon Barkley. He's excited about what he means for the passing game as well out of the backfield. Another great, great answer. But we also threw out the question to all of you and said, hey, what are you most excited about? And I said, send us your text messages, 610-632-0975. I'm going to get into the one concern I have with this offense because I do have one. But let's get some text with the positivity first, Ray. What do we got?
All right, we got Christian checking in from Widener University saying that he believes Dallas will have a Zach Ertz-type season from when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Teams will focus on A.J., Devontae, and Saquon, and it'll open up Dallas Goedert.
I pray he's right, man. I say this every single damn season. Like, this is the year Dallas Goedert goes to the Pro Bowl. This is the year Dallas Goedert has his breakout season. I even drafted him in my fantasy football draft last year because I was really expecting a big year from Dallas Goedert. What you saw last year from Dallas, though, you saw his average yards per catch drop significantly, which to me was more about play design, less about Goddard, because he had 59 catches last year, but he only averaged 10 yards a catch. That's the lowest of his career. You look at 2 years ago, guy's averaging 13 yards a catch. 2021, 15 yards a catch. 10 yards a catch last season? And I thought that was all route designs, man, because how many times did you see Dallas Goedert catching the ball headed towards the sidelines close to the line of scrimmage, or Devontae Smith blocking for Dallas on a screen to the tight end? Like, come on. So to me, I'm with that texter. What was his name?
It was Christian.
Christian. I'm with you, Christian. I'm hoping that Dallas Goedert has a big breakout season as well. And yes, under Kellen Moore, it's something we've certainly seen. He likes to utilize the tight ends. Let's hope he has a big season. What else we got on the text board? Positivity.
Marvin checking in saying Devontae Smith will have a better year than AJ. You heard it here first.
Yo, Marvin, that was his name?
Yep.
Marvin may be right, man. Marvin may be right. That's why I said it before the break. Are we underestimating how good Devontae is going to be this season? Because think about who's going to benefit from Dallas Goedert being involved in the passing game a little bit more. Saquon Barkley being involved in the passing game out of the backfield. AJ is going to get a lot of attention. You're going to go single coverage on Devontae Smith? And we're hearing, I played a clip earlier in the show of AJ Brown saying, nobody can defend this guy. Nobody can defend him. And it wasn't only AJ Brown. I'm glad the texter did it because AJ talked about how Devontae can't be guarded. Listen to what Jalen Hurts said about Devontae Smith.
He looks very quick. He's always been an explosive player. He's just been patient. He's been patient. He's been diligent. He's always been about the grind and about the work, and I'm excited to see him continue to progress. I know the work he puts in, and I know you see how he looks out there, so it's exciting.
Jalen doesn't get too hyped. That's probably the most excited you'll hear from Jalen Hurts, but you could hear it too, talking about Devontae's work ethic. So I'm definitely excited to see Devontae Smith. I think Marvin may be correct. I got to check to see what Devontae's over-under is on receiving yards this year. I want to pull that up because I wonder where Devontae is. I'm going to get that, and we'll get to it later on in the show. But what I want to get into now is we've tried to be positive to start the show, and we're going to continue to take your calls and texts about what you're most excited about with regard to this Eagles offense. But there is a major concern that I have. And maybe, Ray, you could help talk me down. One of the things that this team has struggled with, especially last season, against the blitz. Last year down the stretch, when you knew Wink Martindale was going to blitz the hell out of you, when you knew Todd Bowles was going to blitz the hell out of Jalen Hurts, he does it every single time they play, you had zero answers for it. In that wild card game, Tampa was able to generate unblocked pressures, which means when you came up to the line of scrimmage, you were just completely missing where the blitz was coming from. Well, Jason Kelce used to be the one that would call those blitz protections at the line of scrimmage. One of the best to ever do it. Well, now they're going to switch things up this year, and this is my concern because they're going to have Jalen Hurts involved in it. And we already know he's learning a brand new offense. You have a new play caller, his 10th play caller in the last 9 years. You got to learn new terminology. And now they're throwing at him, well, you're going to be calling blitz protections as well. But it sounds like it's something Jalen Hurts has wanted to do. Listen to Jalen when he talked about blitz protections. Ray's pulling it up. Because Jalen said, look, Jalen is an old school guy. He's going to defer to Kelce. He's going to defer to Fletcher Cox. I think that's a lot of why we talked about yesterday with leadership, that Jalen's going to be able to step up and take control as a leader. But when we talk about blitz protections, it's something he's saying he wanted to always do as well. And, Ray, I think it's Hurts 9, if you have it up in there. Well, our system dropped for a second. So, well, I'll get to my concerns, and then we'll play Jalen Hurts talking about it. Because, we have it already. Look at Ray. He's a master back there. So listen to Jalen Hurts talking about blitz protection.
You know, over the years, it's been something that I've wanted to do, but I feel like it hasn't. I mean, you have Jason Kelce, it's like just let him do it, you know. And so I never really had the opportunity to do those things, but, you know, I think the opportunity has come. And I think it's a collaborative thing with myself and Cam, and we just have to build that relationship. He knows I have a lot of confidence in him to do the job and be the player he is. I mean, he stepped up for us in big moments. He played guard for us last year, and he's been ready. You know, he's ready to lead that O-line room, and I know those guys are going to lean on him.
So there's a lot in there, Ray. So first of all, Jalen's saying it's something that he's wanted to be involved in the past, but they kind of leaned on Kelce. But then he talks about Cam Jurgens. So here's my concern. Jalen's never done it. He's learning a new offense. He's learning new terminology. He's learning a new play caller. All while he has a new center who's also never had to do it before. And now they're going to be responsible together for calling out blitz protections. I'm concerned that there's too much on Jalen's plate this season and that they're going to struggle again against the blitz, which to me would just be a recipe for disaster. Doesn't matter how many weapons you have. Doesn't matter how good Saquon Barkley is in the backfield. If you're not knowing where the blitz is coming from and you can't adjust your protections pre-snap to the blitz, plays aren't going to work, man.
I got 255 million reasons why he's just going to have to figure it out.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Well, look, let's do a little more positivity then, because I'm talking about my concern. Nick Sirianni yesterday spoke before the open practice. And this is Sirianni 2, Ray. Sirianni spoke before the practice, and this isn't the only time we've heard how sharp Jalen looked. Listen to Nick Sirianni.
You guys have seen, like, he's been sharp. He's been really sharp, and been really happy with how he's been operating. He's been in complete control of the offense, and He's really operated at a really high level and knowing where to go with the football, making accurate throws, moving in the pocket to buy extra time or whatever, or if it turns into a run. So he's had an outstanding camp. We're early in camp. I know he wants to just continue to improve. We just want him to continue to improve one day at a time. But thus far, he's had a really good camp, and I'm really excited about where he is.
So Sirianni says Hurts is in complete command of this offense. So maybe my fears shouldn't be there. Maybe I shouldn't be worried that they're throwing too much at him. I just think that practice is one thing, Ray. When you're going up against your teammates in practice and when you know they can't hit you, right? Even if the guy gets into the backfield, they're not allowed to touch you. You're wearing the red jersey. That maybe it's a little bit easier when you're going up against blitz protections and blitz packages from the defense, especially when the defense is learning probably some new ones. And let's face it, Fangio doesn't blitz a lot anyway. So it's not as if he's got a lot on his plate. I just have my concerns that come the regular season, teams are going to start to blitz Jalen again, and will him and Cam Jurgens be able to figure it out first time both of them have ever had to do it?
Yeah, I think your concern with what they're putting on Hurts' plate plays more to my concern about just losing Kelsey and what the offensive line looks like in a post-Jason Kelsey era. In terms of what you mentioned with picking up the blitz, in terms of just having everything pre-snap flow through one guy, and having a new right guard there as well. Like, I think the amount of changing you've done on the offensive line is probably the most concern that I would have for this group. When it comes to Hurts, yeah, it's tough. New play caller, new terminology. He was very, very clear to us in saying 95% of the
95%.
He did not give that percentage, I don't think, without reason. So he gives you that, he tells you that, and you realize how much he has to go through in terms of change. It's tough, but it's also the way of a franchise quarterback in the National Football League. I will have a little bit of sympathy. I will feel a little for him in terms of the ebbs and flows of changing everything going on with his job this year. But ultimately, hey, man, you were put on offense with two top receivers, a pretty good tight end, one of the best running backs in the league, and you did change up 2/5 of your offensive line, but I would take those two tackles and the one guard that's a constant for you over a lot of guys in football right now. You were put in a really, really great situation. You got to kind of make the most of it, no matter how difficult everything is. And plus, everything we seem to know about Jalen is that he lives for this type of thing. He lives for trying to absorb as much as he can with football. We do the whole coach's son cliche how many times with him. But if that's truly what he's about in terms of just absorbing everything, trying to go out there and figure out exactly what's the best way to go win a football game, then all right, man, that's part of your job. Like, this is in the description now. You kind of get lucky when you get drafted to a team with Jason Kelsey of some of the responsibilities that might be taken off of you at this point. Hey, I hope you learned something over the last couple of years working with him.
Yeah, no, you make good points. And even though my concerns are there is a chance that this could be a positive. Like, I'm worried now. I got to see it, how it plays out, especially the first few weeks of the season as he continues to grow. But there's a chance that this actually turns out to be a positive, because now when Jalen comes up to the line of scrimmage, he has to be that field general. And look, I'm going to say this name, but I'm not expecting him to be this guy, but a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady. What made those quarterbacks so good is when they came to the line of scrimmage. I mean, how many times did we hear from Peyton? He's the Mike, 52's the Mike, 52's the Mike, right? They're calling out the blitz protections because they're basing it off of what they see. And by having to do that at the line of scrimmage, you're able to understand everything, hopefully, that the defense is doing. Whereas maybe this has hurt Jalen in the past because, who knows, maybe he relied too much on Jason Kelsey. Maybe he's not going up there trying to figure out where the pressure's coming from because he knows, oh, okay, this is on Kels. He's okay. So that's the one positive that could come from it is Jalen's going to have to be forced now to become that field general. I just get concerned that it may take some time. As good as he's looked in training camp, as good as he looked yesterday, it's still practice. And we're going to get into it a little bit later on in the show. I don't think you're going to see Jalen much until week 1 against Green Bay because Sirianni was asked about it last night. But we'll talk about that a little bit later, Ray, because What I do want to talk to you about now is for the 50,000 fans who were down at Lincoln Financial, they didn't get to see the Hall of Fame game that was on last night. You didn't miss much. Game actually gets ended early for weather purposes. Nobody really played. You didn't see Caleb Williams for Chicago. But what you did see, Ray, it was our first look at the new kickoff rule. Did you get a chance to see this?
I did. I saw the video this morning. I'll be honest, I was not tapped into the Hall of Fame game.
So I only tuned in just to watch the first kickoff. That was all I wanted to see. This may be an unpopular opinion. I like it, man. I like it. I saw Twitter blowing up. People don't like it. Where's my game that I grew up with? The reason I like it is because if you kept the kickoff exactly the way it was a ceremonial play. All they ever did, the kicker could put it out of the end zone whenever he wanted. It was a touchback every damn time. At least now, you're going to get some returns. And I think teams will start to figure out the more this play is in place on how to get the most out of that kickoff return. And the Eagles have a lot of weapons that can return kicks. I'm excited for it, man.
I know I'm going to come around to it. I know I'm going to eventually oh, yeah, this is great. I don't understand why we did any different before. It just looks so weird. I can't get over
weird.
The optic of it. That's really what it is right now. It's just, and I think this isn't the game I grew up on. Maybe that's a little bit for me right now, where I'm just like, this doesn't look like NFL football. Yeah, you could give me any other iteration of football, and I'd believe it that it was there and that they're doing it in some other league. But come on, this is the NFL. It just doesn't look right. And that's really what it is. I understand It's going to end up probably leading to better gameplay. We're actually going to see guys return it, and we're going to, get variations of it that make it more exciting. But for right now, the first time I watched it, I'm like, really? That's
People hate change too, Ray.
Yeah,
and we do. We all, and I'm like that. I hate change as well. And it does look really weird. The weirdest part, not only how they line up, but the fact that nobody moves until the person catches the football. That looks weird, that they're all kind of just waiting for the guy to catch the ball. But what that's going to allow, though, is for more of a return, because now the guy's going to have an opportunity. He catches it and figure out where he wants to go. I'm just looking forward to the strategy behind it, because I think you're going to see a lot of that when the season starts.
Right. The strategy, the excitement of actually returning the ball, all of it's probably I'll come around to it at some point. But I can't help maybe a little bit of the caveman in me that it's just kind of optics. I don't really think too deeply about it. I just look at it. I'm like, doesn't look right. I don't like it. It just doesn't look right to me. And I think at some point, probably if we talk about this in September, I'll be like, wow, did you see that one return in this game? Thank goodness for the new rule. But my first gut reaction that I can't help is, that's weird. Why are you guys staring at each other for the hang time of the ball coming down? Oh yeah, we're just gonna wait, look at each other across the way, and now he caught it. Now let's start playing football. It just doesn't sit right now.
It is very weird, right? It is very weird, but I think we'll come around. We'll get used to it. But this is probably the biggest rule change we've seen come out of the NFL in, 20 years. I'm trying to think about a bigger rule change that the NFL has made. Look, because they've made changes that affect the game as far as the way they call penalties or different things that can be done. The replay coming back a long time ago, the challenge system and all that stuff. But as far as an actual rule change to the way the game is played, this has got to be one of the biggest ones. A big one was when they moved the extra point back. That was a big one.
Right.
But it still looked the same. It was just longer. This is a completely revamping of the kickoff as we know it.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back in my mind. The first one was the challenging the pass interference that jumped to my mind.
That didn't last.
No, it didn't last. No, but it was something that they tried that changed, albeit very, very shortly, the way I enjoyed. You're watching it oh, yeah, is that penalty going to be challenged? So this is the one that probably has the best chance of sticking around and changing the gameplay for a good long time. I'd love to bring back the era of a great kick returner. kick return that.
Oh, Devin Hester, man. How cool. Dude, he started the Super Bowl with a kickoff return for a touchdown. That's what I want to see again. I want to see a difference maker like that.
That's what jumps to mind, where it's like, okay, if this can usher in something like that, maybe I'll bring back the nostalgia of a Devin Hester, where it's like, yeah, that's an exciting way. I'm not just the game doesn't start. The broadcasters don't come on the air with like, hey, from Philadelphia, we've got the Eagles and Giants, and it's like,
and here's a touchback,
and the ball's out of the end zone. Now here comes Jalen Hurts in the offense, looking to get to work.
Yeah, you'll actually have to watch it.
Yeah, like
so.
It might change my eating habits too. I might have to sit down a little bit earlier.
You do have certain eating habits, right? But we want to hear from you. So we asked the question to start the show. What are you most excited about with the Eagles offense? But I'd like to hear from you as well about this new kickoff rule. If you got a chance to see it, do you like it? And then I told you the one thing I'm concerned about with the offense is, are they putting too much on Jalen's plate? The fact that he has to now be responsible for blitz protections as well, do you have concerns? So we want to hear from you, 610-632-0975. You can get in on our text board, send us a text. But when we get back, I mentioned yesterday about that NFL Sunday ticket verdict. Major update, man. Major update there. I was worried it was going to affect the salary cap for years forward. I don't think it is anymore. So we'll talk about that coming up next. Colarulo, 97.5 The Fanatic. Middays. Doing a lot of Eagles talk to start the show because first look by fans at the team last night down at Lincoln Financial. And of course they look good. Everything we're hearing come out of training camp has been good. You got to take it with a grain of salt. It's practice. But it is nice to hear that they look good and that they don't look bad. I'll take it. But what I look more into is what the coaches are saying, what the players are saying as far as what we can expect this year, especially from that offense. And what we threw out to start the show was what has you most excited about this offense? For me, it's not the players. Yes, they're exciting. But the most exciting thing for me is that Kellen Moore is going to let Jalen run. Run, Jalen, run. Because when Jalen runs, this team wins. And I'm not suggesting that he should carry the ball 15 times a game. But don't take that part of his game away. Because it's an element to Jalen's game that makes it very difficult on defenses. It's the reason why the 2022 team was so good. Because of that RPO. Simply having Jalen as a threat to run the ball puts a lot of stress on defenses. And I'm happy to hear Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni, both talk about Jalen's running and that they're going to use it to their advantage this season. Love it. Ray's excited about Saquon Barkley. Great answer. But we also talked about Devontae Smith. Because we threw out the question to everyone, what are you most excited about? And you can get in, 610-632-0975. And when we were talking about Devontae, I said, are we underestimating how good Devontae can be this year? Because everything we're hearing is he's unguardable right now. A.J. Brown said literally no one can guard him in training camp. And I think that's more of a positive about Devontae, not a negative about the secondary. Because we've also heard how good the secondary looks with Keeley and Isaiah Rodgers and rookie Quinyon Mitchell. So the fact that no one's been able to take on Devontae is a good sign. And we had a texter say he's going to have a huge season. Well, here's what's interesting. I threw out before, I wonder what his over-under is according to Vegas. Now, depending on the sports book you use, receiving yards for Devontae Smith in 2024 is about 1,000 yards, Ray. 1,000 yards. That seems extremely low to me. When you're talking about a guy who had 1,000 yards last year in only 16 games, close to 1,100, on an offense that didn't look great, and then the year before in 2022 has 1,200 yards, as a rookie has 916, I may have to run to the sports book as soon as the show ends. Devontae Smith is going to have 1,000 yards this year. You agree with that, right?
Oh, yeah. You don't have to run to the sportsbook. They got the app on your phone now, man.
Look at you.
Yeah. I might have already been firing away there during the break.
Well, here's two prop bets that I think we should take advantage of. One is 1,000 yards for Devontae Smith. To me, that looks like easy money. Jalen Hurts. I've seen his passing yards set at 3,600 yards. What does Vegas know that we don't know, right? Because you look at Jalen Hurts' career. Last season, in what everyone would say was a down year for Jalen Hurts, he threw for over 3,800. 2022, in only 15 games, he threw for over 3,700. So do we really expect Jalen Hurts, with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator and all these weapons now on the offense, that he's not going to surpass 3,600? That one may be an easier bet than the Devontae Smith one. What am I missing here, Ray?
Whatever you're missing, I'm missing too. I don't know if they just don't have the faith, if they think that they had Saquon and all of a sudden this team goes back to what it was his his first year as a starter with this team where they're just run. I don't know what in the world they're seeing, because what I'm seeing is the best wide receiver, one of the best wide receiver duos in all of football, a very good tight end, an offensive coordinator that has had his running backs involved in the passing game before, and a dynamic running back in this passing game. I don't know, maybe Vegas is saying, well, they only have 3 guys really with the potential to get 1,000 yards, Oh, well, I guess they'll just get their 3,300 and no one else is going to touch the football. I'm very confused on why it would be so low.
And I know what some listeners are saying right now. Oh, well, it's because they're going to run the ball more with Saquon. Well, go back to 2022. Miles Sanders had close to 1,300 yards rushing that year. So how many more yards is Saquon going to get? And Jalen threw for 3,700 in only 15 games. So even if Saquon Barkley has 1,400 yards, 1,500 yards rushing, which would be a tremendous season, I'm not even sure I'm expecting him to get that many rushing yards, to be honest with you. But even if he does, Jalen's going to hit 3,600, assuming he stays healthy. That's the concern I have. Is Vegas betting on the fact that Jalen doesn't play a 17-game season?
Probably. That'd be the one thing that I could see. That they're like, they'll run the ball enough. He probably won't play all 17. Maybe Vegas is banking on the Eagles going like 14-3 and him just chilling at the end of the season.
So right on cue, as I said that, I got a text. The book's got to take into account injuries. So that's for my buddy Ralph. But this goes against what we started the show with, Ray. If they're taking into account Jalen, and to your point, you said that you think Vegas is taking into account that the Eagles aren't going to be that good. Is that what you're saying to me?
No, they're so good that he has to sit out that last game.
All right, I thought that's what I heard you say.
No, yeah, the book said they're going 3-14. Hurts gets benched week 7.
Stop. We're being positive today.
6-32.
It's a positive day here on the Fanatic, trying to be. But I lost my train of thought on this one.
It's okay. The book has to account for injuries. Ray started yelling about fake takes.
And you got me all worked up. But it goes to my point to start the show, which was, hey, I want to see Jalen Hurts run the football. And now all the people who are probably screaming at the radio saying, no, you're an idiot, he's going to get hurt. And we're talking about, does Vegas think Jalen's going to get hurt? And that's why they have the over on his passing yards at 3,600. Look, Jalen has to be smart. And we've heard the coaches say it. I don't want to see them take away his running. Last season, he did look tentative when he was running at times, even before the injury. And that may have been them in his ear saying, get down, play it safe, get out of bounds. He needs to kind of find that balance. You can't run scared. You can't run tentatively. But just don't take on the extra tackler. Don't try to get that extra yard. Go out of bounds. Don't try to juke the guy and cut inside and get your head taken off by a linebacker. Just go out of bounds. They got to figure out that healthy balance, Ray.
Yeah, they do. And I really do believe that, Bill. But come on. You tell me that touchdown against the Vikings where you're fighting for that extra yard didn't get you fired up a little bit.
Wait, what was the game where Jalen put his foot in the ground and made that juke?
The Packers?
And then took it to the end zone.
2022?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
I want to say. Yeah, like that.
That was ridiculous.
I fully, in my mind, agree with what you're saying. But when I point to some of the things that have made him special and have made, some of the plays that pop in your head and some of the difference-making plays, sometimes it just comes down to instinct on this one. And if you think that you could make that play to change a game, it's hard for me to try to coach or tell a guy out of that. He's been he is so talented, the ability, all of those things that he has. Part of that comes to just the instinct of what to do on the football field, and try and coach that out of it. You might get a little bit more of that tentative nature. I want to see Jalen be Jalen.
Yeah. No, you're right. I want to see him be Jalen too. And you got to be careful. You remember Mike Vick? You remember when they would try to tell him to go down? He just couldn't figure out how to slide.
No.
He couldn't do it. Something he just couldn't figure out. Here's what they got to do. Get Trey Turner's ass over to the NovaCare complex to teach Jalen Hurts how to slide, because Trey Turner's got the smoothest slide I've ever seen. It's like fun to watch, as weird as that sounds.
No, it is. It is. He's got the coolest slide of the world. And it's kind of annoying, honestly. You should not look that
yeah,
cool.
It's so
sliding.
Smooth. It's exactly what Connor looks like during his softball games, I imagine.
No. I've actually heard quite the opposite, actually. He doesn't slide, though. He has a motto, real men don't slide.
Yeah, he takes on the catcher.
Yeah, he's the one bringing back collisions at the plate.
Yeah, he's pulling the Pete Rose in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
But, all right, before the break, I mentioned this NFL Sunday ticket verdict. And, look, I find this fascinating. Maybe it's because I was an attorney, but you should find it fascinating as well, because The NFL was essentially sued because they jacked up the prices of NFL Sunday Ticket unnecessarily. And it was proven, all types of antitrust laws, not going to bore you with it, but it was proven that they could have offered this cheaper to consumers. So last month, a verdict came out, a $4.7 billion verdict against the NFL. And the way it works with the antitrust violations, you get 3 times it. So it would have jumped to over $14 billion with a B. $14 billion. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. How is that going to impact the salary cap in the future? Because one of the things the Eagles always do well is working under that cap. You anticipate that the cap goes up every year because it's based off of NFL revenue. But look at what happened the COVID year. When revenue was down, the salary cap didn't increase, teams got in trouble. So we talked about it yesterday with this $14 billion judgment that the NFL would have to pay. How does it affect their revenue? How does it affect the salary cap? Well, the NFL doesn't have to worry about that because Judge Philip Gutierrez decided he was just going to throw out the verdict. The NFL appealed it, and yesterday, Judge Gutierrez overturned the verdict and threw out the case. It's good to be the NFL, Ray, when you got that kind of power. Now, I wasn't in the courtroom. I wasn't able to read all of the papers, but I was a trial attorney. And there's nothing worse than when you get a verdict that a jury agrees with you on, and then it gets appealed and the judge decides, nah, jury was wrong.
Heck of a way to lose this one.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer. I've never been anywhere close to a lawyer. Every once in a while, when I go with my grandmother's, I've watched Judge Judy. That's about the extent of the law I've got. But in this case, brutal for everyone that thought they were getting something out of that. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to understand the intricacies of it, so I guess cool that High Roseman doesn't have to reassess the cap. Other than that, I got nothing more for you than that sucks. I really wish that things were affordable to watch the NFL, considering the 25 different streaming services that you have to be signed up for now.
Ridiculous. Yeah, the NFL Sunday Ticket, it was proven that other networks had approached the NFL and they could have offered it a lot cheaper. The NFL was like, nah, we're good. We're going to keep charging people what we're charging people. But, hey, we'll keep monitoring that. I know that bores some people, the legal talk, but it would have affected the salary cap. Doesn't look like it is, which means keep spending, Howie, if you can, because they still got cap that they can carry over from this year to next year, which is a good sign as well. But we're going to continue to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles offense, what has us most excited. Want to get into that more coming up, get some more text messages from you as well. And then coming up at 12, Andrew DeCecco, who was down there last night at the open practice, who's been at every training camp practice, is going to give us some of his biggest observations, because I got to ask him about this whole Kenny Gainwell thing, because I think Kenny G is going to play a lot this season. Get into that coming up.
Coming Monday, August 12th at 10 a.m.
Let's go.
The Fanatic welcomes back a voice that is Philadelphia. Mike Missanelli. Let me say that again. Mike Missanelli. Starting Monday, August 12th, 10 a.m. to 2 every weekday. 97.5 The Fanatic at 97.5thefanatic.com.
A lot about the Eagles' offense because they put on a show last night at Lincoln Financial Field. What are you most excited about with this Eagles offense? For me, it's not a player. It's something that we heard from Kellen and Nick that they're going to let Jalen run. When Jalen runs, this team wins. He's only lost 20 games in his career. 16 of them came when he had less than 10 carries. When he has more than 10 carries, he's 16-4. That's a winning percentage of .800. That's an even better winning percentage than the Phillies had to start the season, which they certainly don't have of late, Raymond. And we're going to do some Phillies coming up later on in the show because they start a big road trip. It's a big road trip for the standings. It's a big road trip for the vibes of this team. Fans are going to panic if they don't start playing better, but I expect them to. So we'll get into all of that. But we threw out the question on Twitter at 97.5 The Fanatic that now that you got your first look at the 2024 Eagles offense last night, if you were down at the link, and I'm sure you've been watching highlights on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook of what this offense is doing, and you've certainly heard a lot from the coaches here on The Fanatic. We run all of those press conferences for you live. We asked the question, who on the offense will have the best season, Ray? What do we got?
All right. So far, we got 8% of the vote going to Dallas Goedert, 19% going to Devontae Smith, 33% going to Saquon Barkley, and 40% of the vote going to A.J. Brown.
Kind of how I expected it, right? Didn't you expect it to kind of be A.J., Saquon, Devontae, Dallas in that order? But I think to our texter Marvin, I want to give him credit again. Marvin, I'm not going to be shocked if Devontae Smith has a better season statistically than A.J. Brown, as crazy as that may sound.
I'm not betting against A.J. Brown, I'll be honest with you.
Not betting. I didn't say I expected it. I said I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, if you're being rational about it, A.J. Brown's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, but it wouldn't shock me in year 4 now for Devontae Smith. We've seen him get better every single season. Statistically, a down year last year compared to 2 years ago, but that's across the board. I just wouldn't be surprised if, with all the attention A.J. Brown's going to get, and with the way Kellen Moore is able to design offensive plays and get the ball to the playmakers in space, I'm not going to be shocked if Devontae finishes with more receiving yards.
I'd be shocked. I think I would be. Honestly, like I understand what you're saying. I think you're right in the fact that Devontae Smith is probably ripe for a big year. He's just A.J. Brown, man. And as much as Devontae Smith benefits from the fact that he's got A.J. Brown on the other side of him, I think A.J. benefits from the fact that he's got Devontae on the other side as well. It's like, yeah, you can put so much attention on A.J. Brown. Sometimes it doesn't matter. And also, if you keep doing that, at some point you got to adjust to the fact that Devontae's beating you, and then they're going to be able to beat you with A.J. Brown. Like, I think overall, for what you get out of A.J. Brown this season, be malpractice for Kellen Moore to be running his offense through anyone else in the passing game. And that's not a diss on Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert or anyone else. It's just the truth of the matter in terms of the talent that you've got on that side of the football.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And as excited as you are, because when we were talking about who you're most excited about or what you're most excited about, not necessarily who, you said it's Saquon. And I played a clip earlier in the show of Kellen Moore talking about using Saquon out of the backfield. But Sirianni did speak as well, and I don't have that clip up, but Sirianni basically said, look, we're going to use the running backs out of the backfield, but make no mistake, this offense still runs through A.J., Devontae, and he mentioned Dallas Goedert. And we had a texter talk about how Dallas Goedert's going to have a monster season. You look back to Kellen Moore when he had the number one offense, because that's the season I really like to look at, the 2021 season with the Dallas Cowboys, where they were number 1 total offense, number 3 passing offense, number 9 rushing offense, number 1 in points, number 6 in red zone, number 8 in yards after catch. He brings that here. Well, who was his leading tight end that season? Dalton Schultz, 78 catches. The most Dallas has ever had in his career. You got to go back to Wow, last season was the most catches of Dallas Goedert's career. 59. And I think everybody would agree he wasn't a big part of that offense last year. And I think you felt that way because of the yards per reception, because he only averaged 10, which was the lowest of his career. Man, could you imagine if Dallas Goedert has 80-something catches like Dalton Schultz had, or 78 catches like Dalton Schultz had?
I think that's what we're all waiting for, right? Like, I understand with this offense, we're talking about all these different weapons and that there are so many guys to get involved, only one football. But I feel like that's what we've been waiting for with Goddard every year. And, like, the joke's made about a number of different tight ends when it comes to, like, fantasy football players of, like, oh, yeah, this is the year that fill-in-the-blank tight end ends up breaking out and having a great season. And it's not to say that Dallas Goedert hasn't had a really, really good career, but I think we've all been waiting for that, like, over-the-top season, that oh-my-God season, that season that leaves you like, yeah, he is amongst the best tight ends in football. He's a fringe top 5, definitely top 10 in terms of, what you've got as a talent as a tight end. But when you look at those top-tier guys, I'm not asking him to be Travis Kelce, but I would tell you that I think the production level that you mentioned there with Schultz compared to what we've gotten from Goddard, I think we're all waiting for that year where he gets close to 80 catches, where he gets the 75 catches and, puts up the 1,000-yard season with probably double-digit touchdowns. Like, is that a possibility with all the weapons in this offense? Maybe not, but I think that's what we all keep looking towards. I think that's like the step that everyone wants to see.
The closest he got was in 2021. He had a very good season. The problem was he got hurt, because you go to 2021, he only played 15 games, but he had 56 catches, 830 yards. He averaged 15 yards per catch, but he didn't play a 17-game season that year. Did they have 17 and 21, or was it 16 still? When did they switch?
No, they had 21 because they went 9-8, because that's the year they made playoffs right before the Super Bowl.
So it was in 2020 they still had 16. But here's the problem with Dallas Goedert, too. We haven't seen him play a full season since his rookie year. He only played 14 games last year, 12 games the year before, 15 the year before, 11 in 2020, 15 in 2019. You got to go all the way back to his rookie season when he played all 16 games. So we've never seen him play 17 games. And as excited as I am about Goddard, if he goes down, who's your tight end? Who's going to be the tight end? Look, I know they brought in C.J. Uzomah, and I'll talk to Andrew DeCecco about this. I didn't love the Uzomah move. On our Birds Insider show we did about a week or two ago, we made a prediction for the 53-man roster. I didn't have Uzomah making it. And DeCecco, I heard him the other day talking about how Uzomah hasn't looked good in training camp. And there's really no upside there. Guy's a veteran. He's on the downside of his career. Maybe you keep him because he can still block, Ray, but he has really no upside. And you got Calcaterra. You have Albert O, who I thought they were high on when they made the trade for him, but barely played last year. I think 50 snaps he got. Didn't do anything. One target. So as excited as you are about Goddard, he's got to stay healthy because they're pretty light at the tight end position after him.
And that's the story with him right now. I feel like it's been health over the last couple of years. Like, involvement, but also, like, can he keep himself on the field? It's not all his fault, but at some point you'd like to see him stay healthy and play that full season. One, for what you think he can be, but two, because you really don't have that option behind him. We've continued to be like, well, maybe this is the year they address tight end. I know going in the draft this year, there was he's older than Zach Ertz was when they took Dallas Goedert, so is it time for them to look for the replacement, the eventual heir apparent? You don't have that on the roster, and you certainly right now don't have an option that if he were to go down, I would be like, oh, yeah, thank goodness. We're going to be able to get targets to this guy.
It's a big concern. It's certainly a concern. I mean, look, health is always a concern, but that's definitely a light position. But we're going to talk more about that because coming up, our Birds insider, Andrew DeCecco, does a great job covering the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been at every training camp practice. He was down there last night. I got a bunch of questions for him about the Eagles. We also have to get into this Phillies road trip as well. All that coming up next.
Fanatic. Comcast Business Studios, powering possibilities. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. Coming up at 2, the best show ever with Tyrone Johnson and Ricky Vitalico. Right now, it's the Midday Show. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Welcome back in, everybody. Phil Colarulo, 97.5 Middays, along with Ray Dunn. Big road trip coming up for the Phillies. That's putting it mildly. Look, we don't want to overreact. It's not a football season. It's a baseball season. But this team needs to win. They just got to get the vibes right. 4-11 in their last 15 games. And it's not going to be easy. Going to Seattle, then to L.A., then to Arizona for 4. So we're going to get into the Phillies a little bit later on in the show because they got to get those vibes right. And it's not just because of Garrett Stubbs. Felt like I was being personally attacked yesterday on the best show ever about my man Garrett Stubbs. But their stars got to start hitting, and they know it. And my man Tyler Phillips back on the mound tonight. Phillies are 4-11 in their last 15. Tyler Phillips has won 3 of them, as crazy as that is. But we'll do some Phillies coming up. Now we're going to talk some Eagles because they had their open practice last night, 50,000 fans down there. But there was someone else who was down there who's been at every training camp practice, who does an amazing job covering the Philadelphia Eagles for us here at 97.5 The Fanatic and for Inside the Birds. My main man, Andrew DeCecco, now joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline. Andrew, what's going on, my brother?
Bill, I'm doing great. I would first like to say congratulations on the new show. It's well-deserved. You and I have worked together quite a bit, and I see the preparation and how you make people better around you, so I can't wait to listen.
I appreciate that, man, and I'm looking forward to it as well, and I'm really looking forward to a Philadelphia Eagles season, and we're getting our hopes up because everything you're seeing come out of camp and what you're seeing coming out of last night's practice is everything looks good. But what have you seen? How good? Let's start with the offense. How good has the offense looked? And understanding it's just practice.
Well, the offense has looked excellent, Bill. Jalen Hurts was on the money yesterday. The practice, it opened in team drills, and really the highlight of that first team offense was Jalen Hurts dropping a dime to A.J. Brown down the field, who had a couple of steps on Darius Slay. So he was stopped around the 4-yard line, and then Jalen hits Dallas Goedert for the score. And that kind of really set the tone for the night, and it has been pretty consistent with what we've seen from Jalen throughout the training camp in that he's in full command. He knows exactly where to go with the football. He's not playing restricted, and he's seeing things a lot faster. He's reading the full field, which I think is crucial to his natural evolution as a quarterback. And to me, the star of the day, or the star of the night, I should say, was Dallas Goedert, who had 3 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. But more importantly, he really seemed to showcase his chemistry and timing with Jalen Hurts that I think is ultimately going to parlay into a really big season.
We were talking about Dallas Goedert before you joined the show because it seems like every year we say this. This is the year Dallas is going to break out. This is the year we can expect a big season from Goedert. But from what you've seen so far, it actually is going to be this year.
I have to think it is. Just one, knowing Kellen Moore and his affinity for utilizing the tight ends and involving them pretty prominently in the offense. But then you're seeing it manifest on the practice field, right? You're seeing the vertical routes. You're seeing a lot more creativity in how they're getting him the football. And perhaps even more notably, you're seeing Jalen Hurts, not averse to utilizing the middle of the field, which has been an area of his game that you and I have talked about, that you'd like to see him develop a little bit more to take his game to the next level. But Goedert is just operating on a high level right now. He's 29 years old. I think this is going to be a Pro Bowl season for him if he's able to stay healthy and really become more of a viable red zone weapon. I think when the Eagles have struggled last season in terms of being able to punch it in the red zone, Dallas Goedert was criminally underutilized, and I think that's going to change this year.
I hope you're right, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And another position on that offense is the third wide receiver. We've talked a lot about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith as your first 2, obviously. But I found it interesting that Johnny Wilson, the rookie, 6th-round draft pick out of Florida State, is getting some burn at that starting wide receiver 3 position. What's going on with there?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Johnny Wilson because that was one of the names that I wrote down pretty early in practice because this isn't just the first time that I've seen him get first-team reps. I saw that last Saturday, and he looks pretty comfortable. He seems to be picking things up fast. He's not playing slow or hesitant or timid by in any stretch, and it seems like Jalen has some trust in him. Johnny's played outside, he's played inside, which I think is really notable. And Jalen name dropped him yesterday during his video conference as someone that and so that kind of lends itself to him really having trust in him. And remember, those two work together, among other players. They work together in the offseason to get their timing down. But Nick Sirianni later, before practice, mentioned Johnny Wilson when he was talking about the wide receiver 3 spot. And I guess he sort of conjured the idea of a committee approach, talking about skill sets and how different players fit in different roles, depending on what they're looking to accomplish. Because you have the speed guy who can get you vertical with John Ross. You have Paris Campbell, who's kind of like the best of both worlds in that area. And then you have Johnny Wilson, who can really beat you in a multitude of ways, particularly in the red zone using his big frame. So I think Johnny Wilson's really helped himself. He's one of my players. It's a spoiler, I know, because I have a story coming out soon, but he's one of my players that I think the stock is up on.
Well, your stories are always great. Make sure you're following Andrew DeCecco on Twitter for those stories because I enjoy reading them, Andrew. So you just talked about 3 guys, but you didn't mention Britton Covey. I know you've been high on Britton Covey as well as potentially being a piece on that offense this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Britton also got some first-team reps as well in the slot. And I will say, and this isn't really an exaggeration by any stretch, you'd be hard-pressed to find a receiver of those 4 that separates with more regularity than Britton Covey. His footwork is pretty incredible to watch, and his short area quickness and his ability to just always find the soft spot in the zone or find ways to generate separation with his razor-sharp route running is something that always really, you watch it and you almost marvel at it because he's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest vertically, but he does have a lot of quickness to him, and I think he knows that this is an off season where he's really going to have an opportunity to showcase what he can do as a receiver and step outside that special teams realm. And last summer he had the hamstring injury, Bill, so he wasn't really able to showcase that. But now it seems like he mentioned he's grateful for the opportunity, and he doesn't seem to be taking it for granted, and he really has shown well when he's gotten the opportunity.
So let me ask you about something else that we brought up. And we're talking to Andrew DeCecco on the Comcast Business Hotline. Does a great job covering the Eagles for us here at 97.5 The Fanatic. One of the issues I do have, as excited as I am about this offense, because there's a lot to be excited about, I am concerned that maybe they're putting too much on Jalen Hurts' plate because he's now going to be responsible, along with Cam Jurgens, for calling some of the blitz protections pre-snap, something he's never had to do before because they had Jason Kelce, a true legend. Are you worried that it's just too much for Jalen Hurts to be able to process this season?
Not yet. I think it's too early for me to kind of sound an alarm in that area. But the reason why I say that, Bill, is because everything that's been thrown at Jalen, he's been able to kind of adapt, process it, and execute it at a pretty high level. Looking at it in terms of the spring, where he looked really uneven, like he was finding his way and learning a new offense, he didn't look particularly sharp. But 6 weeks later, and he's hitting the ground running in training camp, you see the work that he puts in behind the scenes and absorbing it, knowing how many different coordinators he's had over the past 8 years, tells you exactly that he's able to adapt, find ways to accentuate what he does well and find ways to improve the offense. And I think he talks about ownership all the time, ownership of the offense, ownership of what his role was in last season's demise. So I think much like that, you're going to see him take ownership in pass protection and things like that because he wants to take that next step. He wants to return to that 2022 form when he was an MVP candidate, and I think he knows that is a key element to getting him back in that conversation and that natural progression as a quarterback. And Jason Kelce's not here. He handled most of that. So him and Cam are going to have to work through that, and I think as a result, you're going to see Jalen Hurts really take a leap forward.
And as we talk about that offense, let's talk about that right guard position because now that Tyler Steen's hurt, it looks like Mekhi Becton may have the inside track to win that job. I was reading the article you wrote from last night, and there was a pretty interesting competition between Mekhi Becton and Jalen Carter at defensive tackle.
Yeah, that kind of just shows you how powerful Jalen Carter is because now that's 2 practices in a row where I've seen Jalen Carter move Mekhi Becton aside. And for those who don't know, Mekhi Becton is 6'7", 363 pounds, and that may be being generous. Jalen Carter is a very forceful individual, and I think someone who, and you and I have talked about this, I believe he's going to be an all-pro this season. But Mekhi Becton, Bill, he's made up whatever ground was lost initially when Steen got the start, and he's really transitioned pretty seamlessly to guard. Obviously, he's a tackle by trade, but I think you're seeing someone who is able to kind of harness his athleticism and power and understanding how to use his leverage. And obviously, when you're learning from Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach in the NFL, that certainly helps. But it seems to me that if you want to get your best five on the field, I would have to think that Mekhi Becton is one of those players. You just see the athleticism, the power, the fluidity, and when you pair him between Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson, you give yourself a wall on the right side, and you give yourself a wall on the left side with Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson. I mean, that is a lot of mass and for defensive lines to contend with.
Yeah, it is. And this offensive line has the potential to be extremely good if everything clicks. And the running backs that are going to be running behind them, obviously Saquon Barkley's one of them. But I've been hearing a lot of positivity around fourth-year running back Kenny Gainwell. Do you expect Kenny G to be a big part of this offense?
I'm really glad you brought up Kenny Gainwell because I feel like Kenny Gainwell gets too often cast aside and dismissed, and everyone seems to be looking for the next player to replace him. But I got to tell you, and I spoke to Kenny last week, one of the things he's really working on, Bill, is his explosiveness. That was an emphasis over the offseason. And he looks a lot more dynamic in space, explosive. He's catching the ball. He's always caught the ball really well, but he's giving linebackers fits in the flat, and he's racked up a lot of touchdowns over the past couple of practices. So I think he's proven that he has a nose for the end zone. But this is a player who he may not be flashy. He's not going to be the home run hitter that maybe a Will Shipley can be or what a Saquon Barkley is right now. But Kenny Gainwell is a really solid football player. The Eagles trust, especially in situations like 2- and 4-minute offenses. He's a decent pass protector, and he's someone who obviously Jalen has trust with, and they're building that continuity. I think Kenny Gainwell's had a really strong summer.
Yeah, and I know it's going to get fans upset when they see Kenny Gainwell on the field sometimes with Saquon on the bench, but we know Kellen Moore does like to use both running backs. He had Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, so it's something we're going to have to get used to. What about Will Shipley, the rookie? You think he's going to get some playing time on this team this year?
I do, but I would say the first week of training camp, to be honest, he didn't look like he was a rookie. He was playing fast. He was beating players down the field. There was a play where he stonewalled Nakobe Dean on a blitz. But then last night I thought he showed some signs that it kind of brings him down to earth a little bit. And you're like, okay, this is a rookie fourth-round pick. There are going to be growing pains, and he might not be able to be an immediate impact player. That's not to say that he won't, but I think that you see areas of opportunity. I saw some in pass protection last night. But this is a player, Bill, who I do think will eventually eat into Gainwell's touches later in the season, especially with Gainwell being in a contract year. But I wouldn't be so quick to turn the page on Kenny G this early because he's showing that he can be, I don't want to say a prominent piece of the offense, but someone who isn't going to go away, and he has some staying power there. But while Will Shipley learns behind Saquon and Gainwell, I think eventually towards the end of the season you're going to see him be involved a little bit more.
So we've been talking a lot about the offense, Andrew, and you're saying they look good. Well, they're going up against the Eagles' defense every day in practice. How is this new-look Eagles defense?
It's really interesting because you're seeing a lot of mixing and matching of personnel. Last night, it was Isaiah Rodgers who got the start with the first team to begin practice opposite Darius Slay. That now makes, if you're keeping score, that's now 3 starts for Isaiah Rodgers, and Keely Ringo's had 3 through the 6 practices. So if you're asking me to kind of give you a power ranking there, I have Isaiah Rodgers slightly above Keely Ringo right now. I think Isaiah's been a little bit more consistent. He gets his hands on a lot more footballs, and he's had just fewer lapses in coverage, in my opinion. But you're seeing a lot of mixing and matching of personnel. Zach Vaughn has been the constant at linebacker opposite Devin White, but you're also seeing the occasional mix-in with Nakobe Dean. Ben Van Sumeren's been pretty active with the second team. He's gotten a handful of first-team reps as well. So I really think Vic Fangio is trying to gauge what he has in terms of personnel, who fits best where, and how can he put these guys in the best position to be successful. But I'll tell you, last year's Eagles defense, Bill, was really slow-footed. And what I've seen now is an influx of speed and athleticism. They're running to the football. They're flowing to the football. And that's really what you want to see. how these different pieces fit, we're going to find that out pretty soon. But this is going to be a much more reinvigorated, energized defense with a lot of young athletic players. So I think that Vic Fangio has some definite pieces to work with.
I love it. You going to be on tonight's Birds Insider show, Andrew?
I will be there. I will be there probably around 4 o'clock.
All right, well, 6 o'clock tonight, Andrew DeCecco on the Birds Insider. But before I let you run, Andrew, you do a great job covering the Eagles. You just talked about some of the energy you saw from the Eagles defense. I'm going to get a Phillies opinion from you now. Phillies are going on a tough road trip. They're going to get those vibes back, man. Give us something good on the Phils.
I think they will, Bill. And the reason why I say that is the chemistry with the team has never been the issue. And sometimes you need to kind of hit a bottom patch to when everything goes so well for you for so long, you're not used to getting punched in the mouth. You're not used to adversity. And I think this allows you to kind of hit that reset button, regroup as a team, come together, and they have really strong leadership there. And I think, knowing how much talent that they have there, they'll be able to kind of flip that switch and use that to propel forward into when the months get a little bit more meaningful coming up.
You hear that, Ray? He does it all, our Andrew DeCecco. Well, looking forward to listening to you tonight, my man. I appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great day.
See you, bud. That was Andrew DeCecco on the Comcast Business Hotline. Does a great job covering the Eagles for us here at 97.5 The Fanatic, and does a great job for Inside the Birds. You definitely want to follow him on Twitter. His articles are always spot on. Really, he's probably my favorite person to read that writes about the Eagles, Ray. I know I'm a little biased because he's my man, but
I love Andrew.
He does a great job. He really does.
He's a man. I've been talking to him. He'll be the first to mention that the Sunday check-ins that we had last summer were some of the first radio airwave time that he got. So we enjoy talking with one another. He's one of those people that when we have on as a guest, I give a call a few minutes earlier just so I get a chance to talk to him before I put him up on the air.
Yeah, he does a great job. So some interesting things there, Ray. We talked about Kenny Gainwell a little bit to start the show, and he said, I'm happy you brought him up because I do expect him to be a part of that offense. Fans lost their mind last year when it was DeAndre Swift that they weren't getting Rashad Penny involved instead of Kenny Gainwell. I just want to get fans ready for this, that Saquon may be on the bench at times with Kenny Gainwell in there. And please, don't overreact. Everything's fine. You can't have Saquon Barkley on the field every single play. There's going to have to be some rotation back there.
And we're also, there's no bigger guarantee in the world for me that Will Shipley is going to make a massive play in the preseason, and that's going to buy him, like, the fan base for at least half a season. When they see Kenny Gainwell, well, we know what Kenny Gainwell is. Why don't we try this Shipley guy out? I promise you, the coaches know what to do with the Kenny G stuff. It's going to bother me because, I want Saquon out there, but I'm going to understand it in the back of my head. I can't fight the fan inside of me. Sometimes all logic is right there in your head, but you're just like, dude, best player. Put the best player on the field. Give me the best player. Kenny Gainwell has a role with this team that will be okay. I promise that we will all be okay at the end of the day. They did pay Saquon Barkley a lot of money. Part of the reason they got to protect the investment a little bit. I don't need him out there every down, especially if they don't see fit for his role in a certain package or a certain personnel group.
I'm curious. We were talking about some of the over-unders from Vegas for receiving yards, the fact that they only have Devontae at about 1,000, depending on the sports book. They only have Jalen Hurts at 3,600 for passing yards. You know where Saquon comes in, according to the sports books?
1,100.
Only 1,000.
Ooh, injury.
See, but this is what's getting me worried here. We're looking at this Eagles offense as being potentially one of the best offenses we've ever seen. I've literally gotten text from our listeners saying this is going to be the best offense that we've ever seen. And yet Vegas has Jalen throwing 3,600, Saquon running for 1,000, Devontae catching 1,000. And that's in a 17-game season, remember. So I'm getting a little bit nervous. Are we building this offense up too much? And you remember back, I forget who it was. Was it CBS or NFL? I forget who did the rankings, and they didn't have the Eagles in the top 10 of offenses. I have it right here. So it's not just Vegas. Let me see who it was. I did a whole show on this. So I think it was CBS. They did top 10 offenses, and the Eagles weren't on the list. They had the Niners, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Rams, the Bengals, the Dolphins, Packers, Bills, Texans, Colts. The damn Colts were on there and not the Philadelphia Eagles, I still think this is going to be a special offense. I just want to see why Vegas isn't agreeing with us.
They got to account for the disaster scenario. They got to cover themselves here. You know, I'm looking at these, and also, if there's something were to go wrong, and they put it low, all of Philadelphia right now is listening to you. Maybe not all of. I hate to say all of.
They're all running to their sportsbook.
Right.
Apps.
It's the 97% rule. I think 97% of our audience right now is running their sportsbook to be like, you know what? It's a good point that these guys have. Or maybe they don't have a good point, but I'm at least listening to them, and I think that the numbers they're giving out are way too low. Let me go throw some money on. Vegas is sitting there like, well, in case it goes disastrously for this team, guess how much money we're going to rake in on the city of Philadelphia with setting all these over-unders at this ridiculously low mark.
Man, it gets worse. Vegas really has no faith in this offense, though, Ray. Because I'm looking now, Jalen Hurts interceptions. I'm going to give you that number when we get back because clearly Vegas doesn't have faith in this offense. That coming up, and we're going to look forward to the Phillies. I know people want us to get some Phillies talk in. We will. Big road trip coming up. We're going to talk about that. And my man, Eustis grad, Tyler Phillips on the mound tonight. So both of them coming up. But, man, Jalen Hurts interceptions. I can't believe the number Vegas has as the over. We'll be right back. Middays, 97.5 The Fanatic, Bill Colarulo, along with Ray Dunn. And if you're just tuning in for the first time today, big news coming out of The Fanatic today. A brand new midday show kicking off August 12th, 10 o'clock. You'll have me and Ray, but you're also going to have Mike Missinelli coming back to The Fanatic. Big news. Hope you can join us weekdays 10 to 2 right here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Started the show talking Eagles because they had their first open practice and only open practice. Still bothers me, but their first open practice, 50,000 fans showed up last night. Offense looked really good, as they've looked all of training camp. We were just joined by Andrew DeCecco, who told us how good the offense looks, how good Jalen Hurts has looked. But Vegas doesn't seem to be as excited about this offense as we all are. Talked earlier about the fact that the Vegas odds have the over on Jalen Hurts passing yards at 3,600. He had 3,800 last year. He had almost 3,900 last year in what we all thought was a bad offense. He played 15 games in 2022. He had 3,700 yards. Why does Vegas only think 3,600 yards for him? Then we looked at Saquon Barkley. Well, maybe they think Saquon's going to have a lot of rushing yards. The over's 1,000 for Saquon Barkley. How is that possible that Vegas is doing this? And then I looked, okay, well, maybe they just don't think Jalen's going to throw the ball a lot, and there'll be a mix between Saquon and Kenny Gainwell. And right before the break, I told you I looked at Jalen Hurts' interceptions, according to Vegas. This means to me that Vegas is not expecting as big of an offensive season as we are. The over-under on Jalen Hurts' interceptions next year, 10.5, Ray. 10.5. So they're expecting him to only throw 3,600 yards and throw over 10 interceptions, double-digit interceptions. You go back to his 2022 MVP campaign, the guy only threw 6. Last year, 15. I guess if you split the baby, it's around 10. But does Vegas, are you nervous at all? Do these odds get you nervous at all, Ray, or you think they're just kind of hedging their bet, literally?
Yeah, it doesn't make me too nervous. I'll be honest with you. They still got you in terms of favorite to win the Super Bowl. I believe they would be 5th right now on the sports book I'm looking at. So
they still got them winning some games. Yeah, they still have them with odds.
They still believe in a certain amount of them. I think this is just hedging your bet of a whole new offense where, hey, are we going to get this? Are we going to get that out of them? We mentioned injury concern with running the football with your running back who's had an injury history. 2, you talked about it with Hurts running the football. There is the other side of that coin where, hey, it's football. You could get hurt. This is them covering themselves just a little bit in terms of, again, what might happen throughout a season. If they set it up so high, so low. If they set up so high, they might get more under bets, and if something happens, then they're not going to be able to cash on those unders. So they set up a little bit lower, and if something poor happens, then they get the under. If it goes over, then I guess they're in trouble with that one. But I'm trying to look and see just how many players are put ahead of him in terms of how many yards they could throw for, and there's a good grouping in front of him. But I imagine if you went through certain offenses, and if we were doing this, show in another market, we'd be looking at like, how are they giving this player that? I think Vegas obviously does their job pretty well because they seem to be making a boatload of money. But I think they do this to get us certainly in the mindset of, oh, that has to be an over. Why wouldn't my player go over that number this season? They're setting it up for just about everyone to try and throw money on what they want their team to do.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where Jalen is in the odds to lead the league in passing yards, and I don't see him on this list. They got Mahomes, Stroud, Prescott, Goff, Tua, Burrow, Stafford, Cousins, Love, Allen, Rodgers, Purdy. He's not on this list for whatever reason. They don't have odds for Jalen Hurts.
Purdy one kind of stings there. But, all right, let's take this to another quarterback here. Go through the last 5 seasons of what you've gotten from Dak Prescott. You've had 3 of those seasons where he's been pretty comfortably over the 4,000-yard threshold. And the other 2 you would look at and say, oh, well, there was injuries involved in there. So, assuming he stays healthy, he's obviously going to go over that 4,000 spot. His over-under is just 4,075 on the sportsbook I'm looking at. Like, they're going to try and bait you into that, oh, yeah, of course things are going to go perfectly for my team.
Yeah. I'm still going over on passing yards for Jalen. I'm going over on receiving yards for Devontae, and I'm going over on rushing yards for Saquon. You're hitting 2 or 3. I think you're hitting 2 or 3 on those. But the question we threw out to start the show was, what has you most excited about this Philadelphia Eagles offense? I said I love that they're going to have Jalen running the football. Ray said he loves that Saquon Barkley's here and is going to be involved in the passing game. You could still get in on that conversation. Send us a text, 610-632-0975. We have some text, Ray, but before we get to the text, let's get an update on our Twitter poll.
You can vote at 975 The Fanatic. The fans got their first look at the 2024 Eagles offense last night at the link. Who in the offense will have the best season? Still pulling at 9%. Dallas Goedert, 18% for Devontae Smith, 33% for Saquon Barkley, and 40% of the vote going to A.J. Brown.
As expected, A.J. Brown, front runner to have the best season. But I am curious to see what Saquon's going to be able to do here with finally some weapons around him. Hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiver since his rookie season. That was the year he had Eli and OBJ. Since then, he's had terrible quarterback play, terrible offensive line play, no other playmakers on that offense. And now you add him to an offense with all of the other players you just mentioned. I am excited to see what he can do. But what do we got on the text board as far as the excitement level for the offense?
Fran's saying, I'm most excited to see the incorporation of Saquon in this offense. I'm also very interested to see Goddard have a better season than last year. I feel like he's been underutilized, and I want to see the ball more evenly spread between him, AJ, and Devontae.
Okay. I like that, Texter. What else you got?
Devontae is 100% underrated. Since he's a number 2, he doesn't get as much recognition as he deserves. He puts up numbers and makes athletic catches like they're nothing. In my opinion, he's a top 10 wide receiver in the league, maybe even higher. He's proved everyone and stayed healthy.
See, this Devontae talk, I'm glad people are agreeing with us, Ray, because we were talking earlier in the show. Is Devontae, are we underestimating how good he's going to be this season? Because he's now entering the 4th year. He was entering the 4th year of his rookie deal. There would have been a 5th-year option because he was a first-round draft pick, but Howie Roseman very smartly locked him up before the wide receiver market blew up. And really, before Devontae blows up as being one of the top receivers in the league. He's already there. He's already top 20 probably in the NFL. But I think this is going to be the year where you really see Devontae Smith explode on the scene. And everything we've heard coming out of training camp and last night's first practice open to the public was that Devontae looks unguardable. People can't even guard him on that defense. He's put in the work, and now you've added Kellen Moore to be able to design plays to really take advantage of what Devontae Smith can do. I'm excited to see it. I really am excited to see what Devontae's going to do in this offense, Ray.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of us are, and I think Chris in Bethlehem is echoing some of the excitement just for the numbers you mentioned with Devontae or across the board. Most excited to see the offense with Kellen Moore at the helm. Numbers during his 4 years in Dallas were excellent, and none of those offensive rosters were even close to what the Eagles have. I expect there'll be a few hiccups early in the season, but once they settle in, the offense is going to feast.
I'm glad he said once they settle in, because I still firmly believe that you're not going to see this offense really clicking for a few weeks into the season for a lot of the reasons we talked about, because as positive as we've been about the offense, what I said one of my major concerns is that Jalen Hurts has too much on his plate. Now he's also responsible for blitz protections pre-snap. And I think eventually he'll be okay there. But you're asking this guy to learn a new play caller, learn a new offense, new terminology, a new center, a new right guard, and now he also has to handle blitz protections pre-snap. There's a chance you have some growing pains. Now, thankfully, everything we're hearing coming out of camp is he has total command of the offense. Credit to Jalen. He's put in the work. He's learned it. Well, that's all well and good in practice, Ray. Talking about practice. So can he do that come week 1? And what I want to get into after the break before we switch to Phillies, are we going to see Jalen Hurts before week 1 in the preseason? Because this is something we talked a little bit about yesterday. And, of course, Nick Sirianni was asked right away about it. And it doesn't sound like they're going to actually get in, at least their starters, come the preseason. So that's going to come up. And we got to talk about the fight in Phils. And some real sad news out of Major League Baseball. You know what I'm talking about, Ray? Local kid. He's not really a kid anymore. The Millville Slugger, whatever they call him. Mike Trout, man. I just can't believe he's out for another season. Tears his meniscus again. You hate to see this. Look, you hate it because, one, he's a local kid. But just as a sports fan, potential to be one of the best players in Major League Baseball, and the guy just can't stay healthy. So we'll get into all of that coming up. Preseason, and this is more evidence why I'm in agreement with Nick Sirianni. Mike Trout's injury. I need these guys healthy. We don't need any injuries in some meaningless preseason games where the defense is as vanilla as can be, not throwing anything at Jalen Hurts. So I'm completely okay with not seeing the starters, and that's the way it sounds. I'll play that for you coming up next with Nick Sirianni, and then we'll talk some Mike Trout and the Phillies road trip. It's a tough one. Seattle, Dodgers, Diamondbacks for 4 games, and they're going to have to do it without their aces, although Tyler Phillips has looked like an ace as of late, but then Colby Allard on the mound tomorrow. So we'll talk about all of that coming up. But now, our Summer Games update.
Westwood One Sports presents this special
97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Bill Colarulo, middays, 97.5 The Fanatic. And this 12 o'clock hour was brought to you by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months and a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more now at servicefirsthvac.com. So we're talking about the Eagles and how good they look. But again, it's only practice. A lot on Jalen Hurts' plate, learning a new offense, new coordinator. Now he's responsible for blitz protections. And I'm saying, well, that's all fine that he looks good and he looks like he has command of the offense in practice. But when are we going to see him do it against another team? Well, I have a feeling you're probably not going to see him do it against another team until week 1. Because Nick Sirianni has notoriously not played his starters a lot in the preseason, and one of the first things he was asked last night before the open practice was, hey, you going to play your starters this year? This was Sirianni's answer.
I recognize you don't have to make a decision yet about next Friday, but considering there's only one...
Bob told me you guys were going to ask this question. I'm not ready yet.
But what do you think the likelihood is, because there's only one joint practice, that ones may play in these preseason?
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll take it day by day, and we'll see where we are next week.
Sirianni basically said, I'm not telling you anything, man. I hate that, though. Like, look, I think Sirianni knows they're still not going to play their starters, Ray. Because when Sirianni spoke to reporters before training camp started, there was no audio of it because he just met with beat reporters. He talked about how you don't want to overreact too much to what happened last season, and he went on to point out to the fact how good their starts have been the last 2 years. In fact, this is what he said. Again, this was only to beat reporters. There was no audio of it. What's very important is that we don't overcorrect. You have to adapt, you have to evolve, but there's a danger in overcorrecting in my eyes. Last year we started 5-0. The year before we started 8-0. The problem of where we stalled out last year had nothing to do with how training camp was, close quote. And you do look at his record, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, Ray. Best record in the month of September in the NFL in the last 3 years. Best record in the NFL in the months of September and October combined in the last 3 years. All 22 opening day starters in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I'm okay with him not playing. As much as I want to see Jalen Hurts do this against an opponent, you're not going to learn a lot in a preseason game anyway. It's not as if the defense is going to game plan for Jalen. It's not as if the defense is going to be bringing all types of exotic blitzes against Jalen. So no starters in any of these preseason games, just okay with me, man.
Works for me. Put them on ice. See you in Brazil. I'm not going to get myself all bent out of shape about them not playing in the preseason. I want them healthy, and on top of it, with the idea that they're going to solve things like you laid out. I don't think there's a ton they're going to see that's, oh, yeah, this is going to mirror what happens in the game. I will say his answer here.
You hate his press conferences, man.
Come on, man. Like, I feel like we're getting competitive advantaged here.
You hate his press conferences.
Yeah, I do. I can't stand it. I can't. I'm sorry. It just drives me nuts. Right here. Oh, I knew you were going to ask me this. I'm not going to give you an answer, but we're going to drag this out for 30 seconds to have a little fun jibber jab with you. Why not just say what you're going to do? We're all going to have reaction to what you're going to do anyways. Like, is there a world where they go back on what they were already planning on doing?
And you're not getting any competitive advantage in the preseason.
Right.
But you know where you could? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Because I've seen coaches do this before. Not necessarily Sirianni. You don't have to tell your starters they're not playing in the preseason game until they're about to kick off. Because what you do is you get them ready. You have them go through their normal pregame routine. You have them start to get ready for the game. And then you just, hey, you're not playing today. So maybe he doesn't want to announce who's playing, who's not playing. Sometimes those guys find out after warm-ups in the preseason. So at least they get that routine of getting ready for a game.
You think A.J. Brown showing up to the stadium like, ooh, boy.
I wonder if I'm playing.
Yeah, let me get into this. Let me get into my routine today. Let me see what I got for you.
It's all part of the process. It's all part of the process. But look, we're talking about injuries, and I mentioned it before, Ray. We got to talk about Mike Trout a little bit more. And I said the Millville Bomber. His nickname, I think, is the Millville Meteor, if I'm not mistaken. Ray, listen to this over the last 6 seasons. 2024, he's going to play 29 games. Last year, 82 games. 2022, the most he's had in 6 years. He played 119 games. 2021, 36 games. 2020, obviously a shortened season, 53 games. You just hate to see a guy's career get affected by this, and his contract still has 6 years left on it, Ray. 6 years. I know everyone in Philadelphia, and I'm guilty of it too. A couple years ago, rooting for Trout to come to Philadelphia. We wanted Mike Trout. Get him. Pay him whatever he wants. Do whatever you got to do to get him here. Thank God they didn't. The guy can't stay on the field.
Yeah, and these counting numbers for him, I know ultimately I think by the time he's eligible for the Hall of Fame, everything will have shifted and it'll be different in terms of what numbers get you in. And I don't doubt that he won't be when it's all said and done. But you're looking at one of the great careers that we're going to kind of wonder what if. Because as soon as you go to that 2020 season, like beyond the 2020 season, yeah, he's been an all-star 21, 22, 23 because of the way he started seasons. But we're going to wonder what if for some of these numbers, what he could have put up. I don't know if we're ever going to wonder really what if for the Angels having any sort of success, because I think that's an organization that does a really good job of getting in their own way. But for him, like, he still hasn't even crossed the 400 home run threshold for a career.
378.
Which I say, still hasn't, as if like everyone gets to 400. No, obviously it's incredible what he's already done. But some of the numbers that you thought by the end of his career he would get to, that he would kind of find those thresholds, you're starting to wonder just how far he can go.
Yeah, because you look at his second year. So his rookie season, he's 19. At 20 years old, he hits 30 home runs. Then he follows it up with 27, 36, 41, 29, 33, 39, 45 in 2019. And then the injuries start to happen. He only has 17 in 2020. He only has 8 in 2021. He plays 119 games in 2022. He hits 40 home runs again. So the guy still has the skill. The guy still has the power. But then only 18 and now only 10 because of injuries. It is unfortunate because God knows if injuries didn't affect this guy, where he could have ended up as far as an all-time home run hitter and all-time player in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for what the last 4 seasons have brought for him. And the high mark, like you mentioned, 2022, of those 4 seasons, a 40 and 80, like 40 home runs, 80 RBIs, and just under 120 games. You sit there like, man, oh man, what could this guy put up in a full season? And you're starting to get to the point where, I'm not going to say, I'll say newer fans of baseball, like, only really know Mike Trout, the brand, and not necessarily the entire spectacle that we were privileged to watch through pretty much the entire 2010s of what he was as a baseball player. Now it's more of name than you've seen actual game for the last couple of years. When healthy, he's been tremendous, but the health has been the issue. And for a guy that plays for the Angels, it's not like you're exactly, prime time shown off all the time by baseball because of just the organization you play for. So you haven't gotten a lot of chance for him to be in the limelight.
Probably still a Hall of Famer, though. Probably sure thing, right? He's not going to go down as an all-time great as far as, well, I say all-time great. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. But he had the potential to be one of the top 10 Major League Baseball players of all time. But he will still be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So, but that's it on Mike Trout. We got to talk Phillies when we get back. I've been talking about this road trip that's coming up. I want to hear from you when we get back with regard to what do we need to see? They're going to have 3 games against Seattle, 3 against the LA Dodgers, 4 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. 10 games. What do we need to see in those 10 games to feel better about this Phillies team? And you may say, hey, look, I feel just fine. It's just a slump. Okay. Well, depending on how these next 10 games go, you may not be saying that. So we're going to talk about the Phils when we get back. This is Middays. I'm Bill Colarulo. Bill Colarulo along with Ray Dunn. If you're just tuning in, Mike Missinelli's coming back. New midday show kicking off August 12th. Every weekday 10 to 2. Mikey Miss, me, and Ray. Really looking forward to it. Hope you are as well. I'm also looking forward to this Phillies road trip because we got to get that bad taste out of our mouth with this Philadelphia Phillies team. Everything's fine. I'm not panicking. They're still 6 up on the Braves. They're still 8 up on the Mets. It'd be nice if they had a few more games up on the Dodgers, only 2.5 up if we're looking at the National League as a whole. But as long as they win their division, that's key. You'd like to see more games if they get to the NLCS at Citizens Bank Park, but not going to be greedy. Just let's get back in the winning column because things have been terrible over the last 15 games. And this happens. We heard from Jason Stark yesterday when he appeared on the Best Show Ever on Wednesday. I played that clip for you yesterday. This happens to every team. But now enough's enough, Ray. Okay, this is their stretch that they had. Lost 11 of 15, but now it's time that we turn the page and let's get going here. Got the day off yesterday. You're going on a road trip, and I really think it couldn't have come at a better time. I love that they didn't just have this 11 of 15 stretch and then it was, okay, we're staying at home and we're staying at the bank. As good as they are at home, they're 38-21 this year at the bank, 27-22 on the road. I think a team that prides themselves on vibes is going to benefit from taking a nice, long 10-day road trip together. I think this can help them get out of that funk, Ray. You with me?
Not the type of road trip I would want. I would prefer, like, hey,
some
maybe
easier teams.
You got
maybe
the Rockies, the Angels, someone else out there, the Giants, maybe. Not exactly the trip I want. I'll try and take solace in the fact they had a day off and try and regain their focus, maybe, or maybe not even focus, but regain a little bit of the mojo. As someone that has had a lot to say about vibes over the years that I have been here, or multiple, I guess the 2 years that I've been here, I need the vibes to be thrown out the window right now, okay? I want the Moneyball scene where they turn off the music. There's no more dancing in the clubhouse. All right, this is what losing sounds like. I need a little focus right now, all right? I need a little bit more out of you guys than just let's dial up the playlist and see if this works.
I don't know if it's focus, though, Ray. See, that's the thing. For me, I almost would rather them be a little bit loose tonight than to be, gripping the bat a little bit tight, Bryce Harper worried. Or maybe you're right. Maybe they get locked in by doing it the other way. I just think you stay loose. You still have a good squad. I'm curious to hear Ricky Bo coming up at 2 o'clock with Tyrone because I'm sure they're going to get into this Phillies road trip. But for me, I'd rather see the vibes going. And I think getting away from your family, getting away from the city, going on this 10-day trip together should help bring this team out of this funk. But to your point, it would have been nicer if it was against some easier teams.
Yeah, it's the one thing about this trip going. I think you looked at this one maybe a month and a half ago, like, ooh, that might be a tough one. Might be a trip that's going to cause a little bit of problem. It's definitely a stretch we talked about and might be difficult. 4-11 was not something I anticipated from this group this season, just given the way it started and the way they were rolling. It's not something where I'm sitting here like, oh, are you panicked? Are you worried? No, but the one thing you mentioned with the standings I think is going to be big for me to keep following along with as this keeps going is those buys. And right now, you mentioned how close the Dodgers have gotten, but the Brewers now are within 4 games of you. And it's not like, start to sound the sirens. But with the way this season's gone, I would prefer not to see them in a best of 3 come the postseason. I need them to keep themselves in that first round bye scenario where we just start this thing at the NLDS.
Now, I'm with you on that. You certainly don't want to – because, look, the longer a series goes, the more likely it is the better team wins, although that didn't work out last year in the NLCS. But it's a lot easier to get upset in a 3-game series. There's a reason why you look at the NCAA tournament, there's upsets all the time because it's only 1 game. Upsets happen in 1 game. Over the 7-game series, it's more likely the better team comes out on top. So I'm with you. Let's get that first round bye. We don't need this team losing in the first round of October. But you talk about the teams that they have on this road stretch, or on this road trip. The Mariners, they're okay, right? I mean, I don't have fear in me when I look at the Mariners team. I know they've gotten better. They added Randy Arozarena. Now, if he goes off like Jazz Chisholm did, I'm going to lose my damn mind, because there was the rumors Phillies were interested in Randy Arozarena, and then he goes to Seattle for pretty much nothing. Jazz Chisholm, a lot of people wanted him. Andrew Salciunas wanted him. Well, Phillies weren't interested. He goes to the Yankees, and look what he just did. If Randy Arozarena has a huge series against the Phillies coming up, I think fans are going to be a little upset, and I am too.
Yeah, I'm going to already just preface everyone's weekend with, if Arozarena goes off, I apologize for myself on Monday. All right, I could just already throw that out there. I'm going to be upset. He was someone that I wanted. When I saw that trade with the Mariners, I was pretty annoyed. Obviously, they end up getting Hayes, but if I had my choice between the two, Arozarena would have been the choice of the two of them. I have to remember that you didn't give up prospects to get Hayes. You gave up a guy that the Orioles ended up DFAing, and then Anthony Dominguez on top of that. So it's not like it's a catastrophic loss in terms of what you trade away for Hayes, so I understand that. But as much as I can go back and play revisionist history here, I would have loved to see Arozarena on this Phillies team. But I'll push back on you with the Mariners thing. This rotation is not a rotation I want to see while my team's not hitting. Like, that's with this Mariners team, that's the massive concern. And we talk about a great equalizer when it comes to later on this season. The Mariners have to be looking at their rotation and looking at the postseason, 2 months from now is, all right, we've got a rotation that can seriously cause some damage in the American League. And that's the big thing with this group.
Well, yeah, and I do want to see our lineup get out of their slump a little bit, and it's not an ideal situation. What makes me a little bit concerned more than Seattle's rotation is the rotation that we're throwing out there over the next three. Now, you get Wheeler for the third game, I believe, right? We'll get Wheeler on the mound on Sunday. But tonight you have Tyler Phillips, who, what a story he's been. I always throw in Bishop Eustace grad, fellow alum. But you do expect him to come down to earth at some point. I mean, can he keep this up with how well he's been pitching over the last few games? And then you got Colby making his second start, right? He's only started one game. So that's not ideal. It's not ideal that you're trying to get out of this funk and you have two rookies, because this is Colby's only, right?
Well, not a rookie. Colby's been around the block for quite a while.
But when was he last in the major leagues? Was it last season?
I believe he was in the. He's been around the block for a good long time. It's his second start with the Phillies this season, but he's an experienced guy that just doesn't have the experience of succeeding in the bigs. Yeah, he was with the Braves last year.
Okay. Oh yeah, he has been around. You're right.
He's one of those guys that just proves how difficult this sport is, because he's been dominant as a pitcher pretty much at every level except this one.
Yeah, he has been around. And 2018, an over 12 ERA. 2019, a 5 ERA. 2020, 7.7. 2021, 5.4. 2022, 7.29. 2023, 6.57. And in one start with the Phillies, 6.75. So doesn't instill a lot of confidence, though.
No, it does not instill a lot of confidence. He was pitching better in June and July when it came to what he was doing down at AAA. He had a really, really bad April and May down there. But he's been a journeyman for the reason of he just hasn't been able to stick it at the major league level consistently. He was one of those high school arms. The Braves brought him up, thought he was going to be, one of the next big pieces of what they did. Never quite materialized that way, bounced around. I think you see some of the shortcomings, and you saw, obviously, I don't say it was a terrible first start for him as a Philly. He made the mistake over the middle of the plate, and those 3 runs, honestly, I expected more against him than just 3 runs last Sunday, so I could kind of take that one and get more frustrated with the offense not producing in that game Sunday against the Guardians. But it's not a guy I necessarily want to trot out there having to go toe-to-toe with this Mariners rotation.
Yeah, it's not an ideal situation, but to your point about the bats kind of letting them down, the bats haven't done anything over the last 15 games. I mean, you look at this 4-11 stretch over the last 15, the bats are batting .225, and you're not expecting Bryce Harper to go 1 for 30, and it doesn't just stop with him. It's all the stars. Harper said it. The stars have to show up. So for this team to win this series against the Seattle Mariners, it's not going to be Phillips or Allard that's going to carry you, most likely, although Phillips has been playing on his head. It's going to have to be those bats. And you're right, they're going to have to do it against a pretty tough rotation. But let's look ahead now. You got the Mariners for 3. You have the Dodgers for 3. And you get the Diamondbacks, who are playing some really good baseball right now, for 4. I don't want to get greedy. I need them to go 6-4. I need them to win the Mariners series, win the Dodgers series, split with the Diamondbacks, and I'm as happy as can be when they come back to the bank. 6-4.
6-4 would be nice. So I'm trying to think in my head where they winning 2 and then splitting. Ooh, yeah.
I got them going. Yeah, 2-1 against the Mariners, 2-1 against the Dodgers
series,
and then 2-2 against the Diamondbacks. I think you got to win. You got to win the Dodgers series. You have to
win one game in that Dodgers series for sure. That breaks the tiebreaker with them since you swept them here. So you would have won 4 games. They would have won just 2. You need to take one out there in LA for sure. Obviously, you want to win the series, but you absolutely, without question, have to take one of those games out there in LA. And it's not just like I don't want them to. Obviously, I don't want them to get swept. But in terms of what it would mean for them, standings wise, you need to take one out there in LA. I would love to as well. It's hard to expect. Yeah, I think you gotta win the series out in Arizona, I think, and you probably need to take the series. You probably need to take that Dodgers series too. I don't feel good about this rotation going up against like this 3 going up against the Mariners right now. It's again nothing. It is something against Colby Allard. He's just, I don't think he's...
Yeah, you can't have faith in this guy.
Right. I can't really bank on them winning that game. Tyler Phillips has pitched tremendous so far. I hope the story continues. I need Wheeler to bounce back. Looking at this series and looking at this road trip as a whole, I want to see Wheeler bounce back against the Mariners in a big way. Ensure that they take one there. I need one from the Dodgers. I'd like you to go win that series in Arizona. The floor for this team has to be 500 with the way they've played recently. I just need them to somehow gut out a 500 road trip and get back here. Because then it starts to open up a little bit for you before we get towards the end of the month where you start going Braves.
Yeah, it only opens up for a little. So you have the 10-game road trip. You come back August 13th, and you have 5 relatively easy games. Nothing's been easy for the Phillies of late, but relatively easy games. You got the Florida Marlins and the Washington Nationals. So you should win both of those series. But then you have a 13-game stretch right after it where you have the Braves, the Royals, the Astros, the Braves. If this slump continues, by the end of August, we're going to be panicking because that 6-game lead that was once a 10-game lead, how high did it actually get? Was it 10? Did it ever get over 10? Let me look at that. That could very easily, Ray, be down to like 2 or 3 games as that last series against the Braves kicks off.
Or very easily, if they start hitting here, we're not even worried about it. The Braves haven't played great baseball recently either.
No, they haven't. And that's what's helped the Phillies a little bit.
Yeah, that's been a massive help for this group this season so far. So that's, to me, I understand the concern level with the Braves because it's the Braves and because of what they've done to you in the regular season. I don't so much find myself, the highest it ever got to was to 10. I don't find myself as tremendously concerned getting down that stretch. I think this 10-game trip, I just need to see them kind of gut out and find themselves again somewhere in there and make this road trip at least 500, if not 6-4, coming back to Citizens Bank with the opportunity to really catch a roll against some bad teams. 2 bad teams before you start to get to the Braves, before you get to the Royals, to get the Astros.
So you're at 6-4 or 5-5? What did you say?
I said the floor is 5-5, but I would want 6-4 out of this trip.
Now, let's panic for a sec. They go 3-7 on this road trip. The Braves have 3 more coming up against the Marlins. They won yesterday. Then they got a day off. Tough series against the Brewers. Then they got Colorado, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Before they come to Philadelphia for was that on the road? Yeah. Then we're on the road. We're in Atlanta. The Phillies are in Atlanta August 20th. If the Phillies go 3-7 on this stretch, and the Braves win their series against the Marlins, win their series against the Rockies, tough one in the middle against the Brewers, we could be looking at that series that kicks off August 20th, that a sweep could probably get it down to a game.
Well, now you're assuming the worst for this group.
That's what I'm saying. I want to panic for a second.
Yeah, I'm advising you not to. I want you to breathe a little bit. See what you're doing here. You're throwing everything by the way of everyone else. I can't imagine this group, again, this 4-11 stretch, this difficult stretch that they found themselves in right before the break, now after the break. It's part of the ebbs and flows of baseball. It's part of what's going on for teams that have won before. I think I saw 2008, 2009 teams had similar stretches to this because people on Twitter were comparing, oh, there's no way this has happened. It was thrown right back at them. Yeah, it's happened. They've had tough stretches before. This time in the season, this time in the schedule, it's not ideal. But right there, you pretty much just chalked up almost like 3 at best. You gave them an 8-13 stretch coming up following this 4-11 stretch. Does this team, to you, scream a team that goes 12-25 over a 37, almost 40 game sample size?
No, because even as bad as things have been over the last 15, and we could really go all the way back to June 8th, I think, coming back from London against the Mets. That's 44 games, 20-24. I'm hoping they're going to be better than that.
And in that stretch, they swept the Dodgers.
And then, yeah, they swept the Dodgers, and then they had that clunker against the A's. But 44 games, 20-24, that's close to a 500 winning percentage. It's about 455. You don't want to see them do that, but if they play around 500 baseball, it's still going to be very difficult for the Braves to catch them in the NL East.
Yeah, and in that stretch, like, again, I'm not a big fan of the 44-game stretch sample size that keeps getting thrown out there because you're 4-11, 7 games under 500. If you give me a whole thing where they're 4 games under 500, I think that you're really using what was an above 500 team prior to that 15-game stretch and lumping them in with them. In that stretch, you win a series against the Padres. You win a series against the Diamondbacks. You sweep the Dodgers. Some of the teams that we're talking about in this postseason and the Diamondbacks and Dodgers being in this tough stretch coming up, you won series against.
Yeah.
So I can't necessarily get myself totally bent out of shape with the 44 games and use that as a way to justify this team. I look at the last 15, how difficult, how frustrating they've been, and can that be something sustained, and not necessarily sustained in a good way, but sustained in a terrible way over the next couple of weeks? I don't see that being the case given all the talent on this team. The only way I see that is if you have further breaking down in terms of availability of starting pitching.
That is exactly where I was going, Ray. It's got to be, you got to get what you were getting from your starting pitching. Not to that level. I mean, they were doing unbelievable things to start the season. You never thought that was sustainable. But Wheeler's got to get, he can't have a bad outing like he just had. It happens, but I'm saying going forward, we need Wheeler on Sunday to be our ace. He's going to, whatever happens the next 2 games, you got to win on Sunday with Wheeler on the mound. And then we got to see Nola. And I'm expecting we got to be getting an update on Ranger soon, right? They put him on the 15-day IL when? When did that news break?
Yeah, they expected him back, or the timeline was August 8th for him to be back for Arizona. So it was probably the 24th-ish I think it was when retroactive to. So yeah, you're probably halfway through this, just over halfway through this.
I'm not overreacting to the last 15 games. I think they're going to be fine. They're very good. But I told you yesterday, my concern lies with Ranger. I just want to see Suarez get back to being the pitcher that we saw to start the season. And he doesn't even have to get back there. I don't expect him to be as dominant as he was then. I just need to know he's healthy because I do expect him to show up in October the way he has the last 2 years. I just want the guy healthy. I want that arm rested. And that's what I have my little bit of a nervous anticipation for is his first outing back. I want to see Ranger look pretty good. But we want to throw the question out to you. 10-game road trip coming up. Starts with the Mariners, then you go to the Dodgers, then you go to the Diamondbacks for 4. What do you need to see from this Phillies team over those 10 games to feel good about this team as they come back to Citizens Bank Park. You can get in by text 610-632-0975. You can get in by call, same number, 610-632-0975. Going to continue with the Phillies talk. We also got to get back to the Eagles as well, talking about what has us excited. I want to get an update on our final Twitter poll numbers of who the fans think is going to have the biggest season on offense. So all of that coming up next.
Fanatic Sports Update.
TheFanatic.com.
Coming up at 2, the best show ever with Tyrone Johnson and Ricky Vitalico. Right now, it's the Midday Show. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5TheFanatic.com.
Bill Colarulo, 97.5 The Fanatic, middays. And this 1 o'clock hour was brought to you by Ferguson HVAC Lyon Conklin. Attention HVAC contractors for equipment, parts, and supplies for every heating and cooling job. Visit one of Ferguson's counter locations in Bensalem, King of Prussia, Pennsauken, or Westchester. Spent a lot of time today talking about our Eagles. Spent a lot of time talking about the Fightin' Phils starting a big road trip. But the reason we were talking about the Birds is because they had their one and only open practice last night. And 50,000 Eagles fans decided they were going to go down to the link to watch a practice in 95-degree weather because that's just what this fan base does. The best fan base in the country by far right here in Philadelphia. And we needed it. We needed to show that we're still the best fan base in America because Yankees fans, way too many of them at Citizens Bank Park last week. Knicks fans, way too many of them at the Wells Fargo Center for the playoffs way back in, man, when was that? It feels like an eternity ago now. Feels like the Sixers have had a lot of change since then because they have, but man, feels like it was so long ago, and it wasn't that long ago, right?
Feels like it was forever ago.
When was it? When was the last playoff? Was it May?
Beginning of May, yeah.
Man, been a long summer, but the summer is over. The dog days of summer are certainly over. We got the Eagles now only a month away from their first game in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers. You got the Fightin' Phils 2 months away from October, 3 months until the Flyers and the Sixers, and really a little over a week away from a brand new midday show with Mike Missinelli, me, and Ray Dunn. Really looking forward to that. If you missed the news, Mikey Miss is coming back. But as we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, all that we're hearing coming out of training camp and even last night at the open practice is how good the offense looks. That Jalen Hurts looks like he has complete command of this offense. It's all fine. It's exciting. But at the same time, it's only practice. You're going up against your own team. How's that going to translate week 1 against the Green Bay Packers? I don't think you're going to see Jalen a lot in the preseason. So it's a start, and I'm excited about a lot of what I'm hearing coming out of training camp, especially the fact that it looks like Kellen Moore is not going to try to change Jalen. He's going to let him run the football. He's going to let him do what he does well. They're going to actually build plays off of Jalen Hurts' running ability. You heard Nick Sirianni talk about that. They're going to add wrinkles to the running game. But I do have my concerns that maybe they're throwing a little bit too much at Jalen Hurts. All accounts are right now he's picking it up. But a new offense, a new coordinator, new play caller, his 10th play caller in the last 9 years. You got to go all the way back to high school when he had back-to-back years with the same play caller outside of Shane Steichen for the 2021-2022 season. Now they're asking him to pick up blitz protections. They're asking him to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage to the offensive line's pass protection responsibilities. Are they throwing too much at Jalen Hurts? And I want to throw that question out to you, 610-632-0975. Do you have any concerns that maybe they're giving a little bit too much responsibility to Jalen Hurts as the franchise quarterback? Now, Ray and I spoke about that earlier in the show, and I really liked your answer, Ray, because Ray's response was, well, look, he's your franchise quarterback. You're paying him $255 million. He should be able to do this. And the positive could be that Jalen does become a field general, that he does become the guy who can get to the line of scrimmage and know everything that's going on with the offense and the defense and make adjustments accordingly. Nobody did it better than Peyton Manning. Nobody did it better than Tom Brady. What they were able to see pre-snap, they knew whether or not the play was even going to be successful before the ball was even snapped. So maybe by giving this added responsibility to Jalen Hurts, that you get that level of play from him. I just don't think you're going to see it right away. I think there will be growing pains. And how quickly Jalen and the rest of this offense is able to adjust, because remember, he has to build this relationship with Cam Jurgens as well at the line of scrimmage. And I'm not talking about the snapping of the football. That's not a big deal. They'll figure out how to snap the damn ball. What I'm talking about is adjusting their pass protections accordingly. Jalen and Cam Jurgens have to be on the same page. You didn't have to worry about that for the last few seasons when Jason Kelce is making those calls at the line of scrimmage. So I do want to hear from you, 610-632-0975, if you have any concerns. But we were trying to be positive today. What has you most excited about the Philadelphia Eagles offense after their first open practice last night? And I think we got a lot of text on that, Ray.
Yeah, a lot of people checking in with what excites them the most. We got Mike checking in here saying he's most excited to see what another year of A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts together can bring for this offense under Kellen Moore.
Jalen Hurts, and who was the other player?
A.J. Brown, just the connection continuing for another year.
Yeah, look, this is why I was such a defender of Sirianni, was when people were saying, keep Nick Sirianni completely out of the offense. I kept citing the Jalen and A.J., though. Look, you don't have the amount of success that Jalen and A.J. had if Sirianni's offense was just, the guy's a clown. Did it get stale? Absolutely, it got stale. But in 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown is sitting at number 1 and number 2 in franchise history for the most receiving yards. You don't get that if Sirianni's just an absolute clown. I'm happy there's fresh ideas with Kellen Moore, but I just didn't think that you should completely throw everything out the door. And I don't think Kellen Moore is. He's now going to build off of these things and design better plays, because last year it did get pretty ugly to watch. What else we got on the text board?
Going back to the conversation you had about running the ball with Jalen Hurts, Ben in Bucks County. Jalen Hurts can run. I have no problem with that at all. He just needs to limit the amount of hits he takes, get the first down, and get down or out of bounds. What I want to see from Jalen is running without taking those unnecessary hits. And Jalen, offense limiting turnovers, and the offense having a consistent rhythm to it.
A lot of good stuff in there. What was that texter's name?
Ben.
Good text there, Ben. So talking about running the football, because I talked at length to begin the show how I want to see him run, but we did talk about that. He's got to do it smart. He's got to get out of bounds. He can't take the unnecessary hits. But I'm glad the texter brought up the turnovers as well, because we keep talking about that. You look at last year's numbers, they're not that bad. Passing yards, rushing yards, certainly touchdowns are way up. I had Jalen on my fantasy team. He's a fantasy football machine. Highly recommend drafting Jalen early because he scores a bunch of touchdowns. But it was the turnovers last year that killed him. That was the major difference between them both. But we'll continue the Eagles talk. But before the break, we were talking some Phillies as well. And we threw out there, what do you need to see the Phillies do on this road trip? There's 10 games. It's been a terrible slump. I want to see them go 6-4. Ray's being a little bit nicer than me. He said the floor is 5-5. I need them at least to go 6-4 to feel good about it. But do we have anything on the text line on the Fightins?
Yeah, Adam from New York checking in. During these next 10 games, I'd like to see the Phillies have more all-around games. Solid pitching from the starters, offensively not swinging for the fences all the time, plays small ball. I'm not concerned with the bullpen. Estevez has been great as advertised so far. I love Banks.
Okay. See, I'm just not with him on the starting rotation. Well, look, you'll get Nola. You'll get Wheeler on Sunday, then you'll get Nola. But you're not going to have Ranger, most likely. Right? When do you think Ranger comes back on this road trip?
Only chance you'd have the back end of that Diamondback series, which if everything's cool, everything's fine, like they said, maybe.
I think he comes back when they get back.
Probably get him back against Miami to open up that was it 2-game set?
Yeah, August 13th. Yeah, that makes the most sense. But my concern is when we talk about getting that pitching rotation back, look, the next 2 nights, you got Tyler Phillips. Kid's been unbelievable. We can't get too carried away. I mean, there's going to be an outing where he gets hit around. You just would assume. And then Colby Allard tomorrow, the bats have to win it for you. And I keep hearing get to small ball. That's not this team, though. Like, why are we trying to change this team? Talking about Jalen Hurts, I don't want to see them change Jalen, let him run the football. Telling these guys to play small ball is like telling Jalen not to run. You're trying to change who they are. Why don't you want Schwarber doing what he does? Why don't you want Harper doing what he does? He's in a slump. no one has a problem when it works. It's when it doesn't. Now you want to change everything about this team. Are you with me, Ray? Like, small ball, okay, and maybe in the right moments, but don't change who these guys are.
Yeah, some of these guys, you're just not going to ask to do the things that people want them to do. Like, I remember the 10th inning against the Yankees the other night. Bohm comes up with a runner at second. Do I want a guy that bunts how many times a season? Has bunt how many times over the last couple of years to try and move the guy over? No, I want to be swinging. And the runners in scoring position for him, what he's been able to do with driving runs in, I don't want to push a guy over, put it out on the board, and see if someone else can come up and drive the guy in. I understand the thought process behind it, but you got to understand who you're asking to do what. I'm not asking for a change from Schwarber, from Turner, from Harper, from Bohm. I'm not asking that of those guys. I'd like for them to chase a little bit less. I'd like for them to, maybe not necessarily take every pitch and swing for some of these guys that I think are overswinging a little bit right now. But for the core guys, come on. We know what they are. And this is who they are. It's a boom or bust group. Right now, it's not fun to watch. When it's booming, I'll be right there to be right in front of the television celebrating with everyone.
Yeah, everybody loves the long ball. Who was it you say chicks love the long ball? Was that McGuire?
I believe so.
Man, it's a shame. I was listening to Kincade this morning talking about how Barry Bonds needs to be in the Hall of Fame, and he won't go unless Bonds is in the Hall of Fame. It is unfortunate that the steroid era, though, really tainted everything about how fun that McGuire-Sosa summer was. How old were you, Ray? Do you remember that when they were battling McGuire and Sosa back in the day?
You don't want to know.
It was must-watch TV, Ray. It was unbelievable. I remember being down the shore, and every time McGuire or Sosa played, they had it on. You had to figure out how to follow. It was must-watch TV that entire summer. I mean, granted, it was because they were juiced out of their minds, but Major League Baseball didn't seem to mind back then.
No, they didn't seem to mind at the time.
So we're talking about what we need to see from the Phillies as far as wins. I said 6-4, Ray. You said 5-5. But let's talk about what we need to see from the players themselves. I know it's all on the stars. I know Bryce Harper's got to perform. Turner has to perform. Schwarber has to perform. JT, Castellanos, the list goes on and on. I really want to see Austin Hayes have a good road trip. I want to feel good about that move in the outfield. And not that he's played horribly. I mean, he came 4 feet away from having a walk-off. But it'd be really nice to see what we have with Austin Hayes, especially against some right-handed pitching. Show me that you can be that everyday bat out there. Because at this point, if he can't be an everyday bat, I don't know what the plan is. I guess you would have to platoon him and Marsh in left and Rojas as an everyday center fielder unless righties are on the mound. No, you would go. Yes.
You have it right there.
You would have, against lefties, you'd have Hayes in left, Rojas in center. Against righties, you'd have Marsh in left, Rojas in center. Man, Rojas could be an everyday player if Hayes can't hit right-handed pitching. See, I need him to show me he can hit righties.
It'd be nice to see that. And if I'm going to go something I need to see in terms of a player, I want JT to get back to form. I'm not going to hold an injury against the guy, but just would like to see him on this road trip kind of be the JT that we have grown to expect over his time here. He has not been hitting since he came back from the injury, and I would like to see that change.
Yeah, JT, man. I'm sure it's not easy coming back from a knee surgery behind the plate of all things.
Right. It's not easy. I'm not saying that he had to come back and hit 300 right away, but hey, there's one thing I can hold out hope for to seeing on this road trip at night to see him start to hit. That's outside of the obvious, because I think everyone in the world, their hope for this road trip is that Bryce Harper is better than 1 for 30.
Yeah, Ray. He better be better than 1 for 30 on this road trip. When we get back, let's talk about Bryce Harper. Because what we're expecting, every time Bryce slumps, you usually expect something big to happen. So we'll talk about Bryce Harper coming up. We'll get the final numbers on our Twitter poll with the Eagles, and we'll get to more of your text. I'm Bill Colarulo. This is Middays on 97.5 The Fanatic.
More of the Midday Show. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Welcome in. Middays. Bill Colarulo, Ray Dunn. Appreciate everybody who's been tuned in since 10 a.m. Did a lot of Eagles today, a lot of Phillies today. Because we're looking forward to this 10-game road trip from the Fightin' Phils. What we need to see from them to feel good about this team. Not that we're panicking right now. They're still a very good baseball team. They're still 6 up on the Braves in the NL East. But if they have a rough road trip, Ray, I'm getting a little bit closer to maybe hitting the panic button. Not there yet. But if they don't go, I said 6-4. Ray said they need to go 5-5. I'm probably not panicking at 5-5. But if they lose all 3 series and they come back 4-6, 3-7, God forbid, I'm getting a little bit closer to panicking at that point.
I'll be honest with you. I don't want to play therapist for you here, Bill. But if you were sitting down and talking to me about your feelings right now, I would tell you deep down you might have to search your feelings and see if you are panicking just ever so slightly.
Yeah, maybe I am already there.
Well, look, seem like you're sweating a bit.
Here's the only reason why I'm saying I'm not. As bad as things have been, and you just get swept for the first time in 2 years by the Yankees at home, you were 1 run away in both of those games with Bryce Harper hitting 1 for 30. With pretty much no one doing anything at the plate. So if Bryce Harper does anything against the Yankees, you probably win the series. And that's just Bryce Harper. You could put it all on one guy. If he does anything, they win that series. So right before the break, I said to you, well, let's talk about Bryce, because I said 6-4 on the road trip. You said 5-5. Not what you need to see from Bryce, because obviously we need to see him hit. But what do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen with Bryce Harper? Because every single time I can remember, now he's never had a 1 for 30 slump before, but every single time I've seen Bryce start to be, wow, man, should we be worried about Bryce? It happened this season, earlier in the season. Should we start to worry about Bryce? He goes off, I think has 2 home runs and 7 or 8 RBIs in the game right after I questioned him. So what do you think you're going to see from Bryce on this road trip?
That he corrects it, and that we just kind of put to bed the, wow, that was brutal, a brutal stretch. I really don't see myself believing a world that this gets worse. It really can't, numerically for him. 1 for 30, it really can't get worse. I mean, 0 for 30 is a possibility numbers-wise. If there's ever an 0 for 30 Harper slump, I think we're really towards the back end of the contract, and we have bigger problems than just Bryce Harper. Like, I can't really fathom it being worse for the guy. So I can only really look at that. It's going to get better. And it's been interesting because, to nerd out a little bit, like the hard hit percentage, the batting average on balls in play for him, like the hard hit percentage is pretty much the same. Batting average on balls in play has been incredibly low. So when he's putting the ball in play, it's just kind of hitting it to either hitting them where they're at or just not quite getting it where it needs to be. I think that's going to change for him. I think that's due for some positive regression for him. So I think that he's going to be in a place that at some point in this road trip we look back and say, wow, that was brutal for him, but thank goodness they found the real Bryce Harper.
And you talk about the 1 for 30. The last time he had a hit, they won. I mean, like, if he would have had one more hit against the Yankees, they would have won probably 2 games. Like,
yeah,
you got to go all the way back to the Guardians when they beat him 8-0. He was 1 for 4 that game. Not that that's great, but 1 for 4 with a home run. So they win that game. I'm expecting Bryce to have a big road trip. I think all these guys are going to get back. And maybe this is wishful thinking, but really, they're too good to be held down for that long. I'm expecting a big road trip from everybody. So, as we're talking about offense for the Phillies, we talked a lot about the offense for the Eagles today. What's the final Twitter poll numbers, Ray?
Our Twitter poll for today, taking a look at all those players from the offense and how they succeeded how they will succeed this season. The 4 options you had: Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith. Who's going to have the best season? Dallas Goedert dropped in the final poll to 7%. Taking one of those percentages was Devontae Smith, who comes in at 19%. Another percentage point goes to Saquon Barkley, 34%, and A.J. Brown at 40%.
All right, as expected. But I think more and more people should start to take notice about what Devontae Smith has been doing during training camp, because I am very, very optimistic that Devontae is going to have the best season of his career, and he's had 2 really good seasons. I mean, really 3. You go back to his rookie season, doesn't break 1,000 yards, but sets a franchise record for most receiving yards as a rookie. So I'm expecting an even bigger season for Devontae Smith this year. But I can get behind these numbers. Sometimes Twitter doesn't always get it right, but this is a decent one. And as we threw out the question about the Phillies, Ray, I know you said we had a pretty good text on the Phillies conversation.
A text that went along with your line of thinking with the Yankees. The slump isn't the worst. Remember, they had chances to win 2 out of the 3 with New York. It's not like the Phillies are getting blown out every game. A little small ball and smart base running could spark this team. Go Phils.
Okay. Little base running. Maybe if Bohm tags up from second and gets to third, maybe there's a little bit of a different ending.
A little bit of hitting could help.
If Austin Hayes doesn't get that little gust from the gods that keeps the ball in play, they win that game. Bryce Harper's hard ground ball to first that somehow bounces right to the second baseman, they win that game. So I can get behind all that. But we got to see it tonight. First pitch tonight, Ray, what time?
9:40.
Oh, man, I got to work the morning shift tomorrow. Well, at least it's a 9 o'clock. It's not a 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Kincade and Salciunas don't feel bad for me right now.
No, they won't feel bad when next week's LA and Arizona? Yeah, they're not going to feel bad for you. That's I know I'm going to be the guy that stays up for all these, and it's going to be painful.
So maybe an unpopular opinion here. Being a father, I kind of like the late games because the kids are asleep. When there's a 6:40 game, you know how hard it is to be able to pay attention to a 6:40 game when you got kids running around?
Well, a 6:40 game in general is just not the proper time to start a ball game.
I know. You've gone over this before. 7 o'clock so you could have your dinner and you could eat.
See, you already feel it with the 6:40 start. You are actually asking for it to be later. In a way, you're trying to make my argument for me, and I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's nice that the games get over earlier for people, but for me, yeah, being a father, I'd rather them be a little bit later. But I want to thank everybody who tuned in to Middays today. Ray and I will be back with you all next week, leading up to August 12th, when Mikey Miss will be joining us 10 to 2 every single weekday right here on the Fanatic Middays. And you'll get me tomorrow, and Ray, you're on this weekend as well.
That's right, Sunday.
So Ray's on Sunday. You'll have me tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. And coming up next, Tyrone, Ricky, Silvana. Best show ever. Talk to everybody soon.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Big night at the link. Come right down. This update is brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone. Free battery testing, free battery charging, and replacement batteries that fit your needs. That's what makes